Gu Xingfeng was just an ordinary transmigrator, working as a guard in the Great Flame Dynasty's Demon Quelling Bureau. Like always, he came to check on the sealed creatures inside, but this time the one locked up was a little corpse charmer. She looked all pitiful and begged him to let her out, promising she'd do anything in return. Her voice had this strange pull to it, making Gu Xingfeng feel restless and thirsty. But since he came from a modern world, he'd already seen plenty of tricks like this. To him, her so-called charm was no different than a social media filter. He could resist it, and he quickly realized that if he gave in, she'd drain his energy. Many of his colleagues had already fallen for her tricks, and he didn't want to end up like them. So he scolded her for trying such cheap tricks and turned to leave. The little corpse charmer wasn't done though. She suddenly changed her form, standing tall like a graceful woman, her tone full of authority as she demanded he open the door. For a moment, Gu Xingfeng felt pressure from her commanding voice. Just as he was about to glance back, a sharp cracking sound broke through his hesitation. When he finally looked, she was standing there in black stockings, holding a whip and teasing him, asking if she looked good. Gu Xingfeng felt stuck. His brain told him not to look, but his heart said it was too tempting to miss. He convinced himself it was harmless. After all, the prison was full of seals and guards. What could possibly happen from just one look? And in his mind, black stockings were like a divine temptation. That single look, though, pulled him right in. He lost himself completely, even opening the cell door with his own hands and stepping inside. The moment the door opened, the little corpse charmer dropped her act. She rushed at him and tried to bite his neck, but instead of hurting him, it was like she hit a rock and almost cracked her teeth. Right then, a robotic voice rang in Gu Xingfeng's head. It said the system had been activated. Every time he was attacked by a creature, his defense would grow stronger. His stats had already gone up by 1. Shocked, Gu Xingfeng looked around, wondering where the voice came from. Meanwhile, the little corpse charmer calmly walked out of the cell. Gu Xingfeng panicked, yelling that it was a ghost, and rushed toward the exit, but she didn't plan on letting him escape so easily. With one swift leap, she landed right above him and went for his neck again. The moment the little corpse charmer bit him, Gu Xingfeng thought he was finished. But then that system voice rang in his head again, telling him his defense had gone up. Hearing it, he grinned. So the voice wasn't his imagination. The system was real. Curious, he asked what else it could do. The system explained very directly. Every time a creature attacked him, his defense would grow stronger. They couldn't actually harm him, only make him tougher. Gu Xingfeng laughed out loud. With a system like this, he felt like he could stroll around the prison without fear. But before he could enjoy the thought, the little corpse charmer rushed at him again. This time he didn't back down. He smacked her away and complained that she almost gave him a heart attack, telling her to change back and return the young lady she was pretending to be. She froze for a moment, then her face twisted in anger. Calling him a shameless human, she lunged again, grabbing his neck and throwing him to the floor. The system chimed once more. Defense +2. Gu Xingfeng, still lying down, got even happier. He realized the more she attacked him, the stronger he'd get. So he decided to tease her further, telling her to put in more effort, almost like he was mocking her. Furious, the little corpse charmer's eyes turned red as she went into a frenzy, striking him over and over. The system alerts kept stacking, raising his defense non-stop. After a while, though, Gu Xingfeng started getting lazy. He just lay on the ground and joked that this was actually a good back massage. He even told her to hit harder, saying his waist and back were sore from sitting too much. He warned her not to slack off, or else he'd use a whip himself. But as his defense grew, her strikes barely counted anymore. His points were rising slower, and that annoyed him. So he slapped her again, calling her useless, and then casually stretched out his legs, treating her attacks like a foot massage. The little corpse charmer had never been humiliated like this in her life, and it drove her mad. But no matter how hard she went at it, it only made him stronger. Finally, the system congratulated him. He had maxed out his defense and gained a new talent: copper skin, iron bones. Hearing this, Gu Xingfeng sighed and said she wasn't much use anymore. He demanded she change back into the black stockings lady, or else he'd stop being nice. She hesitated, but Gu Xingfeng grabbed her face coldly and reminded her that his words carried weight. Then he tossed her aside, eager to test out his new upgrade. He kicked at her with confidence until she had no choice but to change back into the graceful black stockings lady. Still not satisfied, Gu Xingfeng leaned back and ordered her to dance for him. And not just any dance, he wanted a cool one. The little corpse charmer stayed quiet for a while, but in the end, she reluctantly gave in and performed. Gu Xingfeng even corrected her mid-performance, teaching her a few poses like a strict coach. After hours of this, the poor charmer was completely drained, lying on the ground gasping, while Gu Xingfeng finally stepped out of the cell. Before leaving, he told her to keep practicing those poses and that he'd come back to check next time. With that, he decided to explore more of the demon quelling prison. The place had 3 levels. The first floor was for low-level creatures. The second floor was for mid-tier ones, but only yellow-rank exorcists and above could go there. And the third floor? That was reserved for the high-tier monsters, only accessible to those at mysterious rank and higher. Gu Qingfeng was just a temp worker, so he could only wander around the first floor. Just as he was about to open the next cell, the guard outside reminded him it was time to switch shifts. Gu Qingfeng cheerfully agreed and went off to change his clothes. While changing, he casually asked the system if normal self-training could also make him stronger, aside from being attacked. The system only responded with silence, leaving him completely confused. Still, he thought, relying on yourself is better than relying on others. So he decided to visit the Scripture Vault Pavilion to find a training method. After browsing for a while, he found a technique called Iron Cloth Robe. It was all about strengthening the skin, muscles, and bones, and it matched perfectly with his existing copper skin, iron bones talent. Without hesitation, he registered for it at the front desk and rushed to the training hall. To his surprise, after just one day of practice, he had mastered the Iron Cloth Robe, something that usually took others decades. Not only that, the skill also helped him hide his copper skin, iron bones ability perfectly. Feeling satisfied, he returned to the prison for his shift. When his colleague Zhang Zheng saw him arriving early, he was stunned. Normally, Gu Qingfeng was always late. Gu Qingfeng smiled awkwardly and said he had turned over a new leaf and would even come in an hour early from now on to make up for the shifts Zhang Zheng had covered. Zhang Zheng didn't really believe him at first and even wondered if Gu Qingfeng had eaten something strange. But after hearing him confirm it seriously, Zhang Zheng happily called him a good brother and even promised to treat him to a drink. After Zhang Zheng left, Gu Qingfeng looked at the empty prison and smirked, wondering which cell he should check out next. Soon, he reached a cell covered in talismans and chains, the whole place oozing with mystery. Out of curiosity, he peeked through the small window, and suddenly, a giant bloodshot eyeball stared back at him. In the blink of an eye, his surroundings changed. He found himself in a peaceful scene with birds chirping, flowers blooming, and even a couple laughing nearby. But then the rising red sun in the sky suddenly opened up, revealing itself as a massive eyeball. The sight made his head spin, and the scene twisted into something terrifying, a sea of red mist. Mountains made of bones and a road paved with endless skeletons. Out of nowhere, a 100-meter-tall cyclops appeared, stomping toward him. The impact of its steps sent him flying like a rag doll. As the giant reached out to grab him again, the system's voice suddenly rang in his head. "You've been attacked by an eye demon. Soul strength plus 10. The system alert rang again, snapping Gu Qingfeng out of the illusion. He realized he had just been tricked for a moment. From inside the cell, a voice called him a lowly servant and ordered him to open the door. Gu Qingfeng was annoyed but didn't react right away. Instead, he pretended to still be under control and slowly pushed the cell door open, curious to see what was inside. To his surprise, the so-called terrifying presence was just a small, winged eye demon. The little thing looked so sure of its victory, but right when it thought its trick had worked, Gu Qingfeng suddenly slammed the cell door shut. The eye demon panicked, yelling at him to open the door again. Gu Qingfeng stayed calm, reached through and poked its big eye, making it cry out and curl into a corner in shock. It couldn't believe someone had broken its illusion so easily. Gu Qingfeng even teased it, saying something like, "You're hurt, let me treat you," which only made the eye demon angrier. It immediately cast another illusion, dragging Gu Qingfeng back into that strange dream world. This time, the eye demon turned into a giant cyclops, sitting proudly on a throne, glaring down at him like he was just an ant. It demanded Gu Qingfeng kneel, and countless eyes appeared all around, pressing him down with overwhelming force. Gu Qingfeng almost gave in, but right then the system chimed again. He was being attacked, and his soul strength had increased. With each alert, his soul power rose higher and higher until it hit the limit. Suddenly, he gained a brand new ability, illusory vision. Excited to try it, he lifted his hand, and in an instant, the roles reversed. Gu Qingfeng was now the one sitting on the throne, while the eye demon stood below, completely stunned. The creature couldn't believe its own technique had been stolen, and turned against it. Gu Qingfeng snapped his fingers, ending the illusion and returning to the cell. Then, just to teach the eye demon a lesson, he gave it a painful little warning move, and tossed it aside. But since this little thing had helped him gain a powerful new skill, he decided not to finish it off. Instead, he let it rest for now, saying he'd come back later. The poor eye demon was terrified. The thought of him returning again was enough to make it shiver. After that, Gu Qingfeng went to the Scripture Vault Pavilion to study his new ability. He learned that illusory vision had two main powers. It could control people's actions and trap them inside illusions. The only condition was that he needed eye contact, and the target's soul strength had to be lower than his. Otherwise, the skill wouldn't work well, or might fail completely. The best part was that this ability grew stronger as he did, making it a talent with endless potential. Gu Qingfeng thought about his current strength. With the soul power he had right now, handling fighters in the energy-gathering realm wouldn't be a problem. But if he ran into someone from the inner energy realm, that might be tough. The path of a warrior, after all, was split into 5 main stages: energy gathering, inner energy, true energy, fierce energy, and finally innate realm. also called the Grandmaster stage. These matched up with the Demon Quelling Bureau's own ranks, starting from Apprentice, then Yellow, Mysterious, Earth, and the strongest, Heaven rank. Each big stage even had 9 smaller levels, and only after reaching the 9th could someone move to the next stage. Gu Qingfeng himself was only at the 3rd level of energy gathering, so facing someone from the inner energy realm would be like climbing a mountain. Still, he wasn't discouraged. After all, it had only been 2 days, and the system had already made him untouchable in his own stage. He couldn't help but wonder just how strong he'd get if he kept going a few more days, or even cleared all 3 levels of the demon quelling prison. Right then, an old voice called out from the next cell, asking him to come over. Gu Qingfeng was a bit surprised to hear a prisoner taking the initiative, but he went closer and peeked through the small window. Inside, he saw an old man with a thin, lifeless face. The man asked if Gu Qingfeng had come looking for talisman materials. Gu Qingfeng didn't really get what that meant, but then he saw the old man reach into his chest, tear off a piece of his own body that instantly turned into tree bark and hand it over. This bark, the old man explained, was useful for making talismans. At first, Gu Qingfeng thought it was just a gift, so he casually reached his hand into the cell to take it. That action alone shocked the old man. Most guards would never dare stick their hands into a demon's cell. When the old man hesitated, Gu Qingfeng got a little impatient, asking if he was handing it over or not. The old man gave a cold little smile and finally passed it to him. Gu Qingfeng sniffed the bark and realized it smelled just like the material used on the enchanted cell doors. That's when it clicked. The old man was actually a tree demon, and his bark could be harvested to make talismans. No wonder the Bureau kept him locked here. It was like having a living, renewable treasure source. Gu Qingfeng tucked the bark away since it was valuable, but at the same time, he felt that taking favors would make things complicated. Plus, it didn't feel right to treat the old man as practice material, so he decided to leave him be for now. The old man spoke up again, asking if Gu Qingfeng was in a rush or if he could stay and chat for a while. He explained he had been locked up for 10 years with hardly anyone to talk to, and with his life running short, he just wanted some conversation to ease his mind. Gu Qingfeng shrugged and agreed, asking what he wanted to talk about. The old man leaned back and started telling his story. 100 years ago in Ji County, there was a small place called Zhang Family Village. The people there lived simple, peaceful lives. One day, a boy named Zhang Heng planted a small locust tree by accident. As he was spinning this story, the old man was secretly planning to lure Gu Qingfeng into opening the door. But before he could even finish, Gu Qingfeng suddenly pushed the cell door open himself, catching the old man completely off guard. The old man pointed at him in shock, asking how he dared to just walk in like that. Wasn't he afraid? Gu Qingfeng found a swing nearby, sat down like it was no big deal, and told the old man that he seemed like a harmless type. Plus, listening through a door wasn't the same, so he asked him to continue the story about the locust tree. The old man froze for a moment, unsure whether to keep talking or make a move. After hesitating, he went on with the tale. He said the locust tree eventually grew into a spirit being, and then wiped out everyone in Zhang Family Village. As soon as he finished, the old man dropped the act and showed his true form, a fierce-looking tree spirit with twisted features. Gu Qingfeng wasn't impressed. Instead of reacting seriously, he just threw a punch, sending the tree spirit flying. While doing so, he even complained, asking why the guy couldn't at least finish his story properly before trying something like that. The tree spirit snarled, backed up, and called forth a storm of vines that wrapped around Gu Qingfeng in seconds, tying him up tight and hanging him like a rice dumpling. Just then, the system alert popped up. You have been attacked by the 100-year locust tree sprite. Strength increased by 5. Gu Qingfeng felt his body getting stronger and laughed, telling the tree spirit to go all out. He could handle much more. That mocking attitude only made the locust tree even angrier. It summoned even more vines, trying to crush him with force. But the system chimed again. Strength increased by 5. And then another notification appeared. Congratulations. Host has broken the strength limit and obtained the strength of 9 bulls and 2 tigers. The vines binding him started snapping one by one until Gu Qingfeng finally burst out of them with ease. He stepped forward with new confidence, heading straight for the locust tree. The tree spirit panicked, shouting for him not to come closer, but Gu Qingfeng smirked and said no one was coming to help. It was time to face reality. Moments later, the once proud locust tree was already subdued, now obediently giving Gu Qingfeng a shoulder massage while continuing the story. He admitted he was the very same locust tree from Zhang Family Village. Back then, he had grown on top of a buried spirit weapon. The energy from that weapon had allowed him to transform over time. He explained that spirit weapons were special items with spiritual essence, divided into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Mysterious, and Yellow, matching the Demon Exorcist ranks. The one beneath him had been the Wood King's sword, a powerful Earth-level weapon 100 years ago. But over time, it had been damaged and lost much of its strength, dropping down to Mysterious grade. Hearing this, Gu Qingfeng's interest lit up. He immediately asked where the Wood King's sword was now. The locust tree said that when demon exorcists came to capture him long ago, he knew he couldn't win, so he hid the sword in a secret place only he knew. By this point, Gu Qingfeng was done with all the back and forth. He grabbed the tree spirit by the head and demanded he get straight to the point. The locust tree sprite, startled by Gu Qingfeng's sudden grab, quickly gave in and revealed the truth. The Wood King sword was hidden under the Mountain God Temple, right behind Jiang Family Village in Ji County. Gu Qingfeng finally got the answer he wanted, but as he walked out, he couldn't help grumbling to himself. This tree spirit really talked too much, wasting so much time. By now, it was almost dawn, and there wasn't enough time to check another cell before his shift ended, so instead, he decided to pay the little corpse charmer a visit. He unlocked her cell with practiced ease and found her waiting eagerly. He told her to switch appearances, this time into a confident, elegant lady dressed like a courtesan. Shy but obedient, she transformed into the black stockings lady as requested. Gu Qingfeng clapped in delight, but still felt something was missing. To spice things up, he dragged in the eye demon and asked it to create illusions for him. Together they staged little dramas, one like a campus romance and another like a royal harem struggle. Everything was lively and fun, until suddenly the illusion shattered. Annoyed, Gu Qingfeng turned to the eye demon and asked why it ruined the scene. Nervously, the eye demon explained that it wasn't his fault. It was time for shift change. Gu Qingfeng sighed and yawned. Figures, he thought. Good times always pass too quickly. He got himself ready and went to swap shifts with Zhang Zheng. Zhang Zheng came over humming happily, clearly in a good mood. Curious, Gu Qingfeng asked what happened. He learned that a few days ago, a team led by Master Yang, a mysterious ranked demon exorcist, had gone on a mission to the Bone Forest, but the entire team was wiped out. Because of this, the Phoenix Tree County Demon Quelling Bureau had suddenly lost several strong members, 4 yellow rank exorcists, and even 1 at mysterious rank. With so many gone, the Bureau had to quickly fill the gaps. 4 Inner Energy Realm apprentices were promoted to yellow rank, and one of them even replaced Master Yang. That still left 1 spot open, though. Since there were no more Inner Energy Realm apprentices available, the Bureau decided to hold a martial competition to pick the most capable person and encourage them to train further. The event was scheduled for 3 days later, and Zhang Zheng said the signups were already bustling with excitement. Hearing this, Gu Qingfeng's eyes lit up. He asked if only energy-gathering 9th level apprentices could enter. Zhang Zheng explained that there wasn't really a restriction. Even some at the 8th level had joined. Gu Qingfeng was secretly thrilled. 3 days was plenty of time. If he could win and rise to yellow rank, he'd gain access to the 2nd layer of the demon quelling prison. That meant stronger demons, more encounters, and with the system's help, growing stronger would be as easy as eating and drinking. For him, this was a golden opportunity. Zhang Zheng, though, thought differently. He said those below 9th level were just daydreaming, since it was almost impossible to win against someone stronger. He felt the champion would definitely be among the 9th level group, and advised Gu Qingfeng to rest instead of chasing after something unrealistic. But Gu Qingfeng wasn't swayed. He asked where to register, determined to take his shot. Sure, the system only worked against demons, but martial artists were still a real threat. To win, he'd need to show off, which didn't really match his low-profile personality. Still, with the abilities he'd gained in just 2 days, he felt unbeatable. The limit for someone at energy-gathering 9th level was about 9,000 pounds of strength, but Gu Qingfeng, he was already sitting at 25,000 pounds. With that kind of power, there was no way he'd lose. Meanwhile, the Righteous Energy Hall was packed with people, most of them strong cultivators already at the 9th level of energy gathering. Out of nowhere, a white-haired young man stepped forward from the crowd. He calmly introduced himself as Ye Xuan, an apprentice from the 12th squad, and said his level was only the 7th. The moment he spoke, the crowd broke into laughter. People whispered that he must be out of his mind. They said even those at the 8th level didn't dare to enter. Yet this guy at the 7th thought he stood a chance. Ye Xuan didn't flinch. With a cold face, he told them they were like frogs stuck in a well. If winning was only about power level, then there was no point in holding a competition at all. He said the real test was about courage, not just numbers. One man argued back, saying it wasn't cowardice, just being realistic. But before things heated up further, another voice spoke from behind the crowd. It was Gu Qingfeng. He stepped up and said he agreed with Ye Xuan. Gu admitted he was scared to register earlier because of his low level, but Ye Xuan's boldness inspired him. Hearing this, Ye Xuan looked fired up. He praised Gu for his courage and told everyone that true cultivators shouldn't fear stronger opponents. If they always backed down whenever they met someone stronger, then they would never dare to draw their swords for life. His words hit hard, and many people around began to feel motivated to sign up as well. Ye Xuan even suggested that if they teamed up, then even at lower levels, they could still make an impact. That's when Gu Qingfeng embarrassedly admitted that his level was actually just at the 3rd. The entire hall went silent, and people stared at him like he was crazy. Some thought he was only asking for humiliation, but Gu Qingfeng didn't care. He calmly placed his token on the table, introduced himself as a prison guard from the Demon Quelling Bureau, and signed up anyway. Later that evening, Gu didn't waste any time. He borrowed a fast horse and rode straight toward Jiang Family Village. With just a few days left before the competition, he knew he needed a weapon. The Locust Tree Spirit had once told him about the Wood King's sword, buried 3 3 feet deep under the old locust tree at the mountain god temple behind the village. When Gu arrived, he pushed open the creaky gate and spotted a massive locust tree standing tall in the courtyard. It looked so alive that, given a few more years, it might have even turned into another tree spirit. But Gu wasn't there for that. His eyes were on the sword. He quickly pulled out the digging tools he had brought along and got to work. The night grew quiet as he shoveled deeper and deeper, until soon a large pit several meters deep had formed beneath the tree. As Gu Qingfeng kept digging under the old locust tree, his shovel suddenly hit something hard with a metallic clang. He cleared the dirt away and uncovered an ancient wooden box. Excited, he opened it, only to find what looked like a plain, ordinary wooden sword. For a second, he even thought maybe the tree spirit had tricked him with some homemade junk. Still, he decided to give it a try. He swung it at the shovel nearby, but the sword snapped in half while the shovel didn't even get a scratch. Gu Qingfeng froze, staring in disbelief, then cursed in his head and even swore that when he got back, he'd give that locust tree spirit a good lesson. But just as he was fuming, the broken sword suddenly repaired itself on its own. The loose blade piece wriggled into the ground like it was alive, and out of nowhere, vines started bursting from the earth, wrapping around everything. Gu instinctively lifted the sword to block, but he quickly realized the vines weren't after him. They were chasing the sword itself. That's when something incredible happened. Streams of spiritual energy began pouring into the wooden sword, and with just one casual swing, Gu released a blast of sword energy that pierced straight through the huge locust tree. His eyes lit up instantly. This was the real Wood King sword. He remembered the tree spirit saying that he could bind the sword with his own energy. So he raised his hand, ready to cut his finger, but to his shock, his hand stayed unharmed while the sword itself chipped off a chunk. He nearly lost his mind in frustration and started swinging the thing around wildly. After a while, exhausted, he stopped and began thinking calmly about what to do. Just then, the sword made its own move. Vines sprouted from it and shot straight into Gu's body. He didn't even have time to react before the binding process had already started, pulling his energy. Gu realized the sword wanted to accept him, so he let it continue. But what he didn't know was that spirit weapons weren't meant for just anyone. Normally, only someone at the inner energy realm could handle them. If someone weaker tried, the sword might just drain them dry. Gu soon noticed something was wrong. The vines wouldn't stop. Panicking, he focused all his strength in his left hand, pointed at the sword and threatened it, saying if it didn't stop, he'd bury it back underground. Shockingly, the sword seemed to understand. The vine stopped and it returned to its normal form. Gu collapsed, drenched in sweat. He muttered to himself about how tricky this sword was. The truth was, with his current 7th level strength, he couldn't fully control it. The only reason he survived was because of his unusually tough body. Otherwise, he'd have been finished on the spot. Still, the system confirmed the binding was a success. The Wood King sword was listed as an upper-grade Earth-level spirit weapon, though weakened from years of neglect and energy drain. If Gu nurtured it, it could be restored to its full strength. Its special trait was regeneration. Even if broken, it could repair itself. Reading this, Gu was finally satisfied. The tree spirit hadn't tricked him after all. He even thought about one day giving that spirit some release from the demon-quelling prison, maybe letting it serve as nourishment for the sword instead of rotting away there. Just then, rain began to drizzle down from the sky. Grumbling about his luck, Gu hurried into the old temple nearby. Inside, he saw a huge statue of the mountain god, but its head was missing. He recalled reading in the handbook that when such a statue was damaged, it meant a powerful demon had once passed through, a sign of danger. But Gu wasn't the type to be scared. In fact, he almost looked forward to it. His system gave him power whenever demons attacked, so the stronger the opponent, the better. He lit a fire inside, pulled out a flatbread, and began eating casually. Not long after, footsteps echoed outside. Gu's heart skipped. He thought maybe a demon had already arrived. But when the door creaked open, it wasn't a demon at all. A beautiful young woman in a veil walked in, accompanied by guards. Clearly, she was from a wealthy family. She sat down gracefully and shyly greeted Gu, which made her seem even more endearing. But before Gu could respond, a bald butler beside her tossed a couple of silver taels at him. The man sneered, telling Gu the temple was too cramped and he should take the money and leave. Gu Qingfeng wasn't happy when the bald butler tossed money at him, basically trying to pay him off to leave. He snapped back, saying he was here first, so why should he leave? Then, with a straight face, he even demanded more, 24 taels. The butler's face darkened as he revealed his true energy realm aura, warning Gu not to push his luck. Gu felt a chill. If it had just been someone at the inner energy realm, he might have taken a chance, but against someone this strong, better not be reckless. Just then, the young lady stepped forward and tried to calm things down. She said it was fair since Gu was here first, and politely asked her people not to make things harder for him. Gu, still half joking, muttered that 24 tiles would have been nice though, maybe even 20. The girl only smiled gently and told him to stop teasing. Since it was pouring outside and late at night, she suggested he stay inside with them. Gu thanked her politely, though inside he was thinking, what demons? Nothing to worry about anyway. But hey, 2 taels are still better than nothing. As a sign of goodwill, the girl even handed him a chicken leg. That instantly made the butler and guards grit their teeth. Food was limited, and here she was sharing it with a stranger. stranger. Feeling the sharp stares on him, Gu broke into a nervous sweat and quickly thanked her, praising her kindness. He even asked her name, and blushing, she introduced herself as Si Wei. The two of them started chatting, but suddenly loud screams came from outside. The butler's face hardened. He ordered the guards to protect Si Wei, then stepped outside with a blade. To his shock, every guard posted outside was already down, finished instantly, without even signs of struggle. That level of skill could only mean a true master had arrived. Moments later, a figure appeared on the rooftop, a long-haired man. It was the white-bone sage from the Blood Sect, here to capture Si Wei. Inside, Si Wei panicked. She didn't even know what the Blood Sect was or who this strange man was. One of the guards explained quickly. The Blood Sect was a twisted group obsessed with power and longevity. They dabbled in forbidden arts, tried to merge themselves with demonic energy, and ended up as creatures stuck between human and monster. Whitebone Sage was one of their big shots, a master of corpse refining and a fierce energy realm powerhouse. Hearing about how they consumed humans in their practices, Si Wei nearly collapsed, but Gu caught her by the waist just in time. Flustered and blushing in his arms, she quickly asked why someone like that would even target her. The guards explained that her father, the county protector of Phoenix Tree, had once uncovered a major case involving the Blood Sect. Now, this was their revenge. Gu pieced it together, so Si Wei was the daughter of the county chief, but he was more interested in another detail. He asked the guards if the members of the Blood Sect were considered humans or demons. After all, dealing with spirits and demons was his specialty. He proudly revealed he was an apprentice demon exorcist from Phoenix Tree County's Demon Quelling Bureau. Si Wei's eyes lit up with relief. She said she had heard demon exorcists were the best at handling these kinds of situations, so surely he had a way to deal with Whitebone Sage. But the guards couldn't help laughing. They explained he was just an apprentice, the lowest rank, and only at the energy gathering level. What could he possibly do? Si Wei didn't blame him, and even asked him to just stay inside with them. But Gu shook his head and calmly said not to worry. He just needed to know whether Whitebone Sage counted as human or demon. One of the guards explained that those creatures weren't fully human anymore. They were half human, half monster, because they had monster organs transplanted into their bodies. Hearing this, Gu Qingfeng quickly asked the system if such half monsters could actually hurt him. The system calmly told him that his ability only powered up when real monsters attacked, not half monsters. That answer left Gu Qingfeng stunned. He realized if even the guards couldn't stand up to Whitebone Sage, then he might be in real trouble too. For the first time, he regretted showing off earlier. Just then, a strong gust of evil wind slammed the temple doors wide open, and a massive wave of refined zombies rushed inside. Their numbers were overwhelming. One guard instantly burned up his own life energy to use a secret technique, pushing back the horde for a short while so that another guard could set up a protective barrier. But in the chaos, a copper-armored corpse slipped through and attacked Si Wei from behind. At the last second, the same guard who had sacrificed his strength struck with everything he had left, chopping off the creature's arm. The barrier finally came up, but the guard's body began to fade away as his life force drained completely. Still, he felt no regrets, because at least the young mistress was safe. Meanwhile, outside the temple, the bald butler was still locked in a fierce clash with Whitebone Sage. When he noticed the horde pouring into the temple, his focus broke for just a moment. He knew dragging out this fight was dangerous, so he decided to end it fast. With a shout, he unleashed his exploding clothes technique. His muscles swelled like steel cables, and he threw a massive punch straight at Whitebone Sage's face. The hit landed, but Whitebone Sage just sneered, not even moving. The fierce energy around his body alone was enough to throw the butler back, sending him crashing along the ground like a plow cutting through soil. The butler spat out a mouthful of red and stared in shock. He realized Whitebone Sage had transformed himself into a silver-armored corpse. Whitebone Sage let out a strange laugh and said that this was the true strength of zombies, a perfect form that couldn't be harmed by weapons, carried endless power, and only needed fresh energy to exist forever. With that, he strode confidently toward the mountain god temple. Inside, Gu Qingfeng overheard this and instantly caught the key detail. His opponent had turned into a silver-armored corpse, which was exactly his specialty. He quickly asked the system if zombies counted as monsters or ghosts. When the system confirmed it, his confidence returned. He thought to himself that today was the perfect day to show what he could really do. Without hesitation, Gu Qingfeng stepped out of the barrier and stood directly in front of the zombie horde. In a heartbeat, all of them lunged at him at once. The impact was so strong that his Wood King sword slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. Watching this, Si Wei's eyes filled with tears. She thought he was sacrificing himself to buy them time. Even one of the guards looked at him with deep respect, admitting in his heart that he had misjudged young Master Gu earlier, but the truth was completely different. Gu Qingfeng wasn't struggling at all. Thanks to their attacks, his defense points were shooting up non-stop. In fact, he was practically enjoying himself. Wrapped up in a rolling ball of zombies, he even tumbled right out of the temple. dull, looking more like he was having fun than facing danger. Just then, the system chimed in with a big announcement. Gu Qingfeng's defense had broken through its limit. His copper skin iron bones ability instantly upgraded into the legendary Vajra body. With this boost, Gu Qingfeng spread his arms wide, blasting the zombies away like they were nothing, and stepped out in front of Whitebone Sage, looking like a heavenly figure descending to earth. The bald butler was stunned. Someone at just the energy-gathering 3rd level should never be able to do this. That meant Gu Qingfeng either had a powerful secret technique, or his real cultivation was way higher than anyone thought. As the rain eased, Gu Qingfeng finally spoke. He said he was just an ordinary traveler, but since Miss Siwei had kindly shared food with him earlier, he was here to return the favor by sending Whitebone Sage off. Then, in a calm tone, he even asked if Whitebone Sage wanted to take the easy way out himself to save him the trouble. The whole place went silent. Whitebone Sage exploded with anger. How dare this kid talk like that to him? He was the chief protector of the Blood Demon sect, the #1 under the Grandmasters. Without holding back, he charged forward and smashed a heavy punch at Gu Qingfeng's head. Confident in his strike, Whitebone Sage relaxed. No one had ever survived his full-strength attack. But then, an impatient voice came from behind. Gu Qingfeng stood there unharmed, as if nothing had happened. Whitebone Sage froze. His decades of training, even turning himself into something beyond human, seemed completely useless. Shocked, he demanded to know who Gu Qingfeng really was. Gu Qingfeng just brushed it off and said his name, adding casually that he was just an apprentice demon exorcist from the Demon Quelling Bureau. Inside the temple, Siwei whispered to a guard, asking if apprentices weren't supposed to be weak. The guard replied nervously that there was no way this kind of strength belonged to a beginner. Gu Qingfeng had to be at least heaven rank. Whitebone Sage refused to believe it. He convinced himself that Gu Qingfeng must be some ancient master disguising himself as a young man. Either way, he was determined to take him down. He attacked again, even more aggressively this time. But Gu Qingfeng didn't move an inch. Every hit only made his defense climb higher, with the system repeating. Defense increased by 100, 100, 100. When the dust settled, Whitebone Sage smirked, sure of his victory. But then he heard Gu Qingfeng's lazy voice behind him, telling him to stop wasting time and use whatever tricks he had left. Furious, Whitebone Sage shouted that Gu Qingfeng had forced him into this, while Gu Qingfeng just shrugged and said, "Good, make it fun for me." Next, Whitebone Sage unleashed his deadliest move, the Whitebone Wraithfire. He threw it straight at Gu Qingfeng, laughing wildly. In his eyes, nobody in the world would dare take that attack head-on. He bragged that the Wraithfire was cultivated from countless bones and the essence of many powerful beings, able to corrupt both body and soul. He swore that no matter how strong Gu Qingfeng was, he wouldn't leave the temple standing today. From inside the blazing Whitebone Wraithfire, everyone suddenly heard Gu Qingfeng's calm voice saying it actually felt kind of warm. Whitebone Sage froze on the spot and quickly backed away, shocked to see Gu Qingfeng standing there completely fine inside the flames. At that moment, the system chimed in again. Gu Qingfeng's defense had leveled up, and he even unlocked a new talent, fire control. Within moments, as the flames wrapped around him, that talent evolved into fire mastery. Gu Qingfeng casually looked at Whitebone Sage and asked if he had any other tricks. Hearing this, Whitebone Sage completely lost it. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Not only had Gu Qingfeng survived his strongest attack, but even worse, his Whitebone Wraithfire was gone, stolen right from him. Panicking, he tried to summon it again, but nothing came out. He shouted in disbelief, demanding Gu Qingfeng return it. Gu Qingfeng shrugged and said he wasn't unreasonable. If Whitebone Sage wanted it back, then fine. He tossed the Wraithfire right at him. The moment it hit, there was a massive explosion, and Whitebone Sage disappeared into a sea of fire. A giant pillar of red flame shot into the sky, and the shockwave was so strong, it sent the bald butler flying through the air, spinning a couple of times before landing. Gu Qingfeng then calmly used his new fire mastery to absorb the Wraithfire into his body, though the sudden burst of energy accidentally sent the bald butler tumbling again. Looking at the ashes on the ground, Gu Qingfeng couldn't help but sigh. His opponent had been a peak-level master, which meant his storage ring must have held countless treasures. Rare weapons, elixirs, secret manuals, and piles of gold and silver, all now burned away with him. To thank him for saving their lives, the bald butler respectfully handed Gu Qingfeng a county protector's token, explaining that in Phoenix Tree County, this token would give him face and help him avoid small troubles. Gu Qingfeng accepted it with a smile, saying he would honor the gesture. Right then, the guard who had mocked Gu Qingfeng earlier suddenly dropped to his knees. He admitted his mistake, apologized, and said he felt ashamed for his earlier words. Gu Qingfeng smiled faintly and agreed that a punishment was needed. Siwei was about to step in for the guard, but the bald butler stopped her, saying it wasn't worth offending a grandmaster over a lowly guard. Surprisingly, Gu Qingfeng declared the punishment to be just 24 taels of silver. Siwei couldn't help but laugh at his playful choice, and the guard was so relieved that he immediately thanked him, saying he was even willing to give 240 taels if needed. Hearing the larger amount, Gu Qingfeng's eyes lit up for a moment, but before he could say anything, the bald butler quickly scolded the guard. reminding him not to insult a master by offering money. Realizing his blunder, the guard quickly kowtowed again and respectfully presented exactly 24 tiles of silver as Gu Qingfeng had asked. Gu Qingfeng looked a little disappointed when the guard only paid 24 tiles. In his heart, he was thinking how nice it would have been if the butler hadn't stopped him earlier. He could have made 240 taels, which was like 10 years of his salary. Still, he accepted the silver with a smile and told the guard the matter was settled. The bald butler was amazed. He admired how calm and generous Gu Qingfeng was, saying that this was exactly how a true expert should act. After that, everyone returned to their barbecue. Gu Qingfeng casually munched on a chicken leg while chatting with Siwei, but deep inside, he couldn't help but think how realistic the world was. Before the fight, people treated him like nothing. After showing his strength, their attitudes completely flipped. He thought to himself, if I didn't have power, I might not even be standing here today. Later, he checked the talents he had gained: Vajra Body and Fire Mastery. Vajra Body was way stronger than Copper Skin or Iron Bones, able to defend against high-level attacks. Fire Mastery, on the other hand, was just as valuable, letting him control flames freely, even taking away other people's fire. It was basically the ultimate counter to anyone using fire-based techniques. Thinking about it, he realized he had made huge gains, especially after absorbing Whitebone Sage's Wraithfire. 2 days passed, and Gu Qingfeng, along with Siwei, returned to Phoenix Tree County. He said his goodbyes and went straight to the Demon Quelling Bureau to join the martial arts competition. The arena was already packed with people, and 5 judges were sitting in front, ready to watch. With the sound of gongs, the first fight began. Ye Xuan versus He Yi. Ye Xuan was at the 7th level, while He Yi was at the 9th. The gap was too big, and even though Ye Xuan had the courage to fight, he was taken down in less than 3 moves. Watching this, Gu Qingfeng quickly helped him up. Ye Shen, feeling defeated, told Gu Qingfeng to just give up. He had just learned the hard way how impossible it was to fight above your level, but Gu Qingfeng wasn't the type to back out. He said simply that once he gave his word, he couldn't go back on it. Hearing this, Ye Xuan felt guilty, thinking he had dragged Gu Qingfeng into trouble. Soon, the gong sounded again. It was time for Gu Qingfeng's turn. He was only at the 3rd level, while his opponent, Lin Xiao, was at the 9th. Lin Xiao looked at him with pure confidence, almost laughing. To him, this fight was as good as free points. He even told Gu Qingfeng to bring out a weapon, saying it wouldn't matter anyway. Gu Qingfeng noticed the sword hanging at Lin Xiao's waist and asked why he wasn't using it. Lin Xiao smirked and said he didn't need a weapon to handle him. Gu Qingfeng shook his head, saying that wouldn't be fair. If he won using a weapon while Lin Xiao stayed unarmed, people would call it cheating. Lin Xiao laughed and said, "Fine, use whatever you want. If you can even make me move 1 step, I'll admit defeat." Since Lin Xiao was so confident, Gu Qingfeng didn't hold back. He drew out his wooden sword and introduced it proudly to everyone. It was 3 feet long, crafted from the heart of a 1,000-year-old Emperor Willow Tree, and had taken 18 years to forge. He called it the Wood King's Sword, a lower-grade spirit weapon. The crowd burst into laughter. To them, it was just an old piece of wood, and now this 3rd-level rookie was claiming it was some kind of treasure. People whispered and laughed, saying no wonder this guy dared to compete. He was clearly crazy. Gu Qingfeng stayed calm and told Lin Xiao again that his wooden sword really was a mysterious rank spirit weapon. Lin Xiao, a bit annoyed, said fine, he wouldn't call it unfair. The moment Gu Qingfeng attacked, Lin Xiao easily caught the strike and laughed at him, saying it was just a kid's toy. He even snapped the sword in half right there, thinking he had embarrassed Gu Qingfeng. But Gu Qingfeng didn't react at all. He just stood there quietly. Then suddenly, a sharp sting cut across Lin Xiao's hand, making him drop the broken sword piece in shock. That broken piece started glowing with blue light, and before anyone could understand what was happening, vines burst out from the ground, wrapping tightly around Lin Xiao. He struggled hard, but the more he fought, the tighter the vines became. Only then did he realize Gu Qingfeng had been serious all along. That sword really was a powerful spirit weapon. No matter how much Lin Xiao tried, he couldn't break free. His face twisted with pain, and finally Gu Qingfeng spoke lightly, telling him it was enough and thanking him for conceding. But instead of accepting it, Lin Xiao, red-eyed and frustrated, shouted that the win wasn't fair. Gu Qingfeng just smiled and reminded him, "You're the one who agreed I could use it. How is it unfair now?" Lin Xiao snapped back that nobody could have guessed a plain wooden sword was actually a spirit weapon. But Gu Qingfeng calmly pointed out that he had clearly introduced the sword in detail before the fight, and everyone in the audience had heard it. Still refusing to admit defeat, Lin Xiao demanded a rematch without weapons. Gu Qingfeng wasn't about to fall for that. He waved the sword in his hand and directly asked the judges if spirit weapons were against the rules. A woman with an eye patch laughed and said she liked this kid's attitude. The main judge, He Fenghua, confirmed there was no such rule, so Gu Qingfeng was officially declared the winner. After the vines were released, Lin Xiao still begged for another round, but He Fenghua slammed the table and told him off. A loss was a loss, and he had to step down. Lin Xiao had no choice but to leave the stage, humiliated. As Gu Qingfeng was about to leave, He Fenghua suddenly called him back and tried to buy the Wood King's sword, offering 2,000 taels of gold. But Gu Qingfeng wasn't foolish. He politely refused, saying the sword was a family heirloom and couldn't be sold. Fenghua's face darkened, clearly unhappy, and just as he was about to make things difficult, a cheerful female voice called out. She told him the private duel matter had already been handled, and reminded him the final match was starting. Fenghua had no choice but to walk away with her, pretending everything was fine. But deep inside, he was already planning how to somehow take Gu Qingfeng's spirit weapon in the future. After all the drama, Gu Qingfeng went back to his room and decided it was finally time to try actual cultivation. Even though he had the system helping him since the start, he'd never really practiced properly. But now he understood something. If he raised his realm, people would respect him more, and life would get a lot easier. Plus, higher cultivation meant living longer. With that in mind, he sat cross-legged and began practicing. The method he used was the Pure Bright technique, the basic training every Demon Quelling Bureau member had to learn. Since most enemies had dark attributes, exorcists used bright attribute techniques to counter them. Gu Qingfeng closed his eyes, focused, and started pulling in the spiritual energy around him. At first, it felt like a warm flow gathering in his body, but without realizing it, he ended up falling asleep. By the time he woke up the next day, he sighed to himself. It wasn't that he didn't want to train, it was just that cultivation was way too boring. So, he grumbled to the system, asking why it always gave him random boosts like defense or strength, but never just bumped up his cultivation realm directly. Jokingly, he even complained, "What are you trying to do? Turn me into some muscle guy?" To his surprise, the system actually replied. It said it couldn't improve his realm because he technically didn't have one yet. Gu Qingfeng got annoyed and argued back, saying he was clearly at the third level of energy gathering. But the system explained that energy gathering didn't count as real cultivation. That stage was only storing energy, not refining it. True cultivation only started from the inner energy realm, and until he reached that point, the system couldn't upgrade him. Gu Qingfeng tried to bargain, asking if there was some other way, but the system flat out refused. Feeling helpless, he accepted that it would take him ages to reach inner energy if he relied only on training. So, for now, he just let it go and moved on to prepare for the next round of the martial arts competition. When he showed up at the arena, all eyes turned to him. After all, he was just a third-level energy-gathering rookie, but carried a legendary mysterious rank spirit weapon. In the Demon Quelling Bureau, normal demon exorcists only used ordinary weapons. Even those at the higher mysterious rank usually only had yellow-grade spirit weapons. True mysterious rank weapons were rare, and usually belonged only to powerful Earth-level exorcists. In fact, the entire bureau only had one Earth-level spirit weapon, owned by a top expert named Li Qianren, so everyone was shocked and envious that someone like Gu Qingfeng had one. His opponent for the round, a guy at the 9th level of energy gathering, looked nervous. He knew fighting against such a weapon left him with almost no chance. Still, he decided to go all in, hoping to defeat Gu Qingfeng before he could use the sword. The man rushed forward, slashing his blade right at Gu Qingfeng. But just before the strike landed, the Wood King's sword reacted on its own. Vines shot out, weaving into a wooden shield so tough that the opponent's blade couldn't even scratch it. The man froze in disbelief. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, he quickly jumped back to create distance. But as soon as he landed and saw Gu Qingfeng standing there calm and protected, he had no idea what to do next. Gu Qingfeng wasn't planning to give his opponent even a second to react. He quickly controlled the vines, wrapped them around the man's sword, and yanked it away like it was nothing. The vines spread everywhere, even bursting out from the ground, leaving the poor guy totally caught off guard. Once he had the upper hand, Gu Qingfeng casually thought of tossing the sword back just to wrap things up. But right then, the man tried a sneaky counterattack. Bad idea. The vines smacked him aside instantly, making the whole audience go silent. In the very next round, Gu Qingfeng didn't even waste words. He just bound the opponent with vines and tossed him out of the stage. The move wasn't exactly damaging, but it was so humiliating that the crowd didn't know whether to laugh or feel bad. Then an old man stepped up. He suggested that Gu Qingfeng fight fair without using the spirit weapon, even saying he'd lower his own cultivation level to match him. But before he could even finish talking, Gu Qingfeng's vines shot out and sent him flying. Only then did Gu Qingfeng look around innocently and ask what the old guy had been saying. He joked that the wind was too noisy, so he couldn't really hear. The audience was left speechless. With this, Gu Qingfeng easily made it into the top 4. But the other contestants weren't happy at all. They went straight to Fenghua and complained, saying Gu Qingfeng was basically cheating with that spirit weapon, making the whole contest pointless. Fenghua didn't stop them. In fact, he saw an opportunity and sent his steward, Huang, to deal with Gu Qingfeng. The next morning, while Gu Qingfeng was chilling in his room and practicing, Huang showed up. He explained that the others were boycotting him and that Lord he was offering a deal. If Gu Qingfeng agreed to sell the Wood King sword, he'd be allowed to keep using it for now and later trade it in once he became a yellow rank exorcist. On top of that, he'd get money, the official title, and Lord He's favor. Gu Qingfeng asked straight up what would happen if he refused. Huang shrugged dramatically and said then he'd be banned from using the sword, stuck in the top 4, lose the yellow rank title, and even upset Lord He. But Gu Qingfeng wasn't moved. He told him flat out the sword was a family heirloom and he wasn't selling, so Huang could just leave. Huang snorted and called him foolish before walking out. Back at the arena, the crowd was buzzing with excitement. Everyone was whispering that they felt bad for Gu Qingfeng's next opponent, Hu Banking, one of the favorites to win the whole competition. Hu Banking was no small fry. He was already at the 9th level of energy gathering and had once taken down an ironclad corpse. That feat alone almost pushed him into the inner energy stage, making him a half-step powerhouse. But unlucky for him, his next opponent was Gu Qingfeng. Right before the match started, Hu Banking raised his hand and told the judges he had something to say. He accused Gu Qingfeng of cheating by abusing the spirit weapon rules and claimed the guy didn't really have the strength or character to deserve the title. Basically, he wanted the judges to ban Gu Qingfeng's Wood King sword. Fenghua immediately gave Gu Qingfeng the chance to respond. To everyone's surprise, Gu Qingfeng laughed it off and said he only used the spirit weapon because he didn't want to crush their confidence. The audience burst out laughing, mocking him for acting so arrogant, but Gu Qingfeng didn't flinch. He calmly put the Wood King sword away and announced that he'd fight without it. He even added that he'd been invincible in the energy gathering realm for a long time. His words made the crowd even louder, but also curious. With his declaration, the judges officially revoked his right to use the spirit weapon. The fight began. Hu Banking, full of pride, thought Gu Qingfeng with only 3rd level cultivation was an easy win. He even tossed his sword aside and swung his fist straight at Gu Qingfeng's head. But instead of hurting Gu Qingfeng, it was Hu Banking who screamed in pain. His hand felt like it had smashed into steel. The whole arena went quiet, and Fenghua even stood up, realizing Gu Qingfeng had mastered the legendary iron cloth robe. Nearby, the one-eyed woman was impressed too. Muttering that she never expected to see such a genius in external training, the audience erupted in shock. How could someone at the 3rd level tank a punch from a 9th level master? Hu Banking, clutching his hand, grabbed his long sword again and charged, but Gu Qingfeng casually caught the blade with his bare hand and snapped it apart like it was nothing. He looked at Hu Banking and told him there was a huge gap between them. He had only been holding back so the others wouldn't lose confidence, but now it was clear who stood above. Hu Banking, though pale and trembling, still refused to admit defeat. He claimed Gu Qingfeng was only physically tough, not truly superior. Gu Qingfeng had heard enough. He placed his hand on Hu Banking's head and pressed him down, face first, into the ground, leaving a deep dent. Hu Banking instantly fainted. Brushing the dust off his hands, Gu Qingfeng told the steward to announce the result, smiling like it was just another casual day. The audience was stunned. Once again, he had won effortlessly, this time without even using his spirit weapon. As Gu Qingfeng walked off, his next opponent, Bai Maming, watched nervously. His confidence crumbled, and he even doubted if his spear could pierce Gu Qingfeng's defense at all. Fenghua noticed this and quietly approached him later. When asked if he still had confidence, Bai Maming reluctantly admitted he didn't. That's when Fenghua revealed a trump card, a hidden spirit weapon, a yellow-grade lower-tier spear called Facing the Phoenix, which had never been shown in public before. Bai Maming was still confused about why Fenghua suddenly gave him a spirit weapon. Fenghua coldly explained that Gu Qingfeng was too arrogant, too reckless, and if someone like him became a yellow-rank demon exorcist, it would be a disaster. He handed Bai Maming a spear called Facing the Phoenix and said that with this weapon he could definitely break through Gu Qingfeng's defense. Bai Maming felt grateful. With this weapon, not only did he have a real chance of winning, but he might also gain Lord He's favor. But soon, a thought hit him. Weren't spirit weapons banned in this competition? If he used it, wouldn't that make him the one breaking the rules? Fenghua just laughed coldly and said the ban only applied to Gu Qingfeng. Bai Maming hesitated for a moment. He knew this was shady, but the temptation of becoming a yellow-rank demon exorcist was too strong. In the end, he agreed. The next day, the arena was packed. Everyone was buzzing about Gu Qingfeng, the guy who had defeated opponents 6 levels above him. Some people were so inspired they even started practicing the iron cloth robe themselves, and the library's manuals ran out of stock. When the match began, Gu Qingfeng walked up casually. He looked at Bai Maming and joked, asking if he wanted to fight for real or just surrender early to save time. Bai Maming wasn't having it. He declared loudly that he had developed his own unique spear technique, powerful enough to pierce anything, and challenged Gu Qingfeng to withstand just one strike. If he survived it, Bai Maming promised he would concede. Gu Qingfeng didn't argue. Instead, he smirked, opened his shirt a little, and told Bai Maming to go ahead. But while Bai Maming was staring at his chest like it was a piece of art, Gu Qingfeng frowned. In his head, he was like, "What's with this guy? Why is he staring at me like that?" The fight started, and Bai Maming thrust his spear with all his strength. Flames exploded on the stage, and Bai Maming grinned, certain he had won. But when the fire cleared, Gu Qingfeng stood there completely fine, glowing with a golden barrier. The crowd gasped. They realized what it was, the Golden Bell shield in its full form, paired with the iron cloth robe. Together, Gu Qingfeng's body was as tough as a yellow rank spirit weapon. No wonder the spear couldn't touch him. Qingfeng stayed calm and even teased Bai Maming, saying so this was his self-developed technique. Using a spirit weapon and calling it original, that was bold. Bai Maming tried again, stabbing harder, but the spear couldn't move an inch past Gu Qingfeng's defense. Gu Qingfeng, now annoyed, asked him straight up if he was having fun stabbing him like this. Bai Maming froze, his confidence crumbling, and his nervous stare made Gu Qingfeng even more uncomfortable. "Why are you looking at me like that again?" he asked. Bai Maming misunderstood, thinking Gu Qingfeng was trying to trick him into always striking at the chest, so he changed targets, aiming for the navel instead. But just as he thrust, Qingfeng casually caught the spear tip with 2 fingers, and it stopped dead. Gu Qingfeng was annoyed by Bai Maming's attempt to strike at an odd angle. He scolded him casually, then with a flick of strength, snatched the spear and tossed it out of the arena. The crowd immediately lost interest in the fight and rushed to grab the weapon, leaving He Fenghua fuming since it belonged to him. Bai Maming, feeling triumphant, teased Gu Qingfeng about his chest being vulnerable. Gu Qingfeng was speechless and reminded him that he had only refused the other strikes to protect his clothes. The audience watched as Gu Qingfeng showed off his strength, and even when Bai Maming clung to his robe and tore it, he still couldn't gain the upper hand. With a final move, Gu Qingfeng sent him flying out of the arena. The referee declared Gu Qingfeng the winner, officially earning him the rank of Yellow Rank Demon Exorcist. Steward Huang and the one-eyed woman congratulated him and handed over the standard equipment for his new rank, the goose feather blade and the exorcism token. The blade, though not a spirit weapon, was high-quality steel with a small formation that gave it extra effect against demons. The token acted as a record, storing the aura of any demon the holder subdued, basically a merit tracker. Afterward, the one-eyed woman left, leaving Steward Huang to guide Gu Qingfeng through his promotion benefits. As a new yellow rank demon exorcist, he could claim a primordial cultivation pill and pick a martial technique from the Scripture Vault Pavilion. It was his first time on the 2nd floor, and with so many techniques, he felt overwhelmed. So he decided to pick one at random. When he opened his eyes, he realized the technique he chose was called the Burn Bright Sword, an extremely powerful and risky sword technique. It used the bright fire energy within the body to attack, which could hurt the user if not controlled properly. The administrator warned him it was dangerous, suggesting he pick something safer, but Gu Qingfeng felt it was perfect for him. With his strong physique and fire mastery talent, the technique matched him like it was made for him. Combining it with his Whitebone Wraithfire would be like holding a secret trump card. Confident and excited, he decided to keep the Burn Bright Sword and also planned to pick up the Golden Bell Shield later. The administrator warned him again to be careful, but Gu Qingfeng was determined, saying that no hardship was too great if it meant showing his true ability. He trusted fate had chosen him to master this technique. With that, he left the Scripture Vault Pavilion, leaving the administrator both worried and impressed. After leaving the Scripture Vault Pavilion, Gu Qingfeng ran into Steward Huang. Huang noticed the Golden Bell Shield in his hand and wondered why he was carrying it, since Gu Qingfeng had already mastered it. Gu Qingfeng awkwardly scratched his head and shared a casual but wise comment about reviewing the old to learn the new, which surprisingly impressed Huang. Secretly, Huang decided he wouldn't make things difficult for Gu Qingfeng unless ordered. As Huang was about to report back, he saw He Fenghua standing outside. Turns out, He Fenghua had discovered that the spear, facing the phoenix, had ended up in his own yard, right in a manure pit. Since spirit weapons are extremely sharp, it had pierced deep down. He Fenghua had just cleaned the yard, but a faint smell lingered. Remembering Huang's poor sense of smell, He Fenghua took him to retrieve the spear. Huang hesitated at first, grossed out by the smell, but eventually jumped in and fished it out. Meanwhile, Gu Qingfeng stayed inside, mastering the Golden Bell Shield. He then wanted to practice the Burn Bright Sword, but doing it indoors could burn down the house, so he decided to head to the suburbs. At the outskirts of Phoenix Tree County, Gu Qingfeng started his training. The first step required absorbing bright fire energy from the sun to infuse it into one's inner energy. Normally, one would refine and compress this energy to let it burst out like real fire, but since Gu Qingfeng only had 3rd level energy, gathering and lacked true inner energy, he skipped to the next step, focusing the energy onto his sword. The technique involved compressing and igniting the energy at a precise point for an explosive effect. Without mastery, it could backfire, and Gu Qingfeng nervously thought about applying the same method to his Whitebone Wraithfire. He tried using the Burn Bright Sword method to slash out the Wraithfire. After many tries, he finally managed to unleash a super concentrated sword energy that split a small mountain. The slash continued toward Phoenix Tree County, creating a massive boom and lighting up the night sky like daytime. Gu Qingfeng's training was intense, but he was clearly leveling up fast. After pulling off that massive slash, Gu Qingfeng finally understood the Burn Bright Sword, compress the energy, then release it explosively. But as he watched the sword energy shoot toward Phoenix Tree County, he realized this could be a problem. What if someone got hurt? Panicking, he sprinted toward the county to make sure no one was in danger. Not long after, a group arrived at the scene, led by the heaven-rank demon exorcist of Phoenix Tree County. He immediately sensed the white bone, Wraithfire, and recognized the sword marks on the ground. Combining sword techniques with white bone Wraithfire was unique to the Blood Demon sect, so he guessed the person responsible was either a Blood Demon sect grandmaster or a spy from the Demon Quelling Bureau. Looking closer, he realized the sword technique matched the Burn Bright sword from the Bureau. That meant either the culprit had been to the Bureau or someone inside had leaked its secrets. He figured the Blood Demon sect was testing him, sending a strong practitioner at night to swing a sword, destroy a mountain, but avoid harming people. A clear provocation. Their real target was probably the Candle Dark sword, an Earth-rank martial technique related to the Burn Bright sword. Both originated from the incomplete Heaven-rank Cross-Underworld Flame sword, and the Blood Demon sect might be trying to uncover fragments. Thinking strategically, he decided to use the Candle Dark sword to lure them out and trap them, possibly finishing off a core enemy while maybe even completing the Heaven-rank technique if they had other fragments. But he planned to discuss this with his colleagues first. Meanwhile, Gu Qingfeng made his way to the resting room, happy to see everyone safe. Today's experiment combining Burn Bright sword with Whitebone Wraithfire had been a huge success, way more powerful than he expected, but he realized the technique was dangerous and unpredictable. He might accidentally hurt someone if he used it carelessly. Practicing it secretly was also impossible because of the noise and power. Then he had an idea. Why not use normal flames instead of Whitebone Wraithfire? It would be much safer, and with his fire mastery talent, he could control them just as well. Feeling confident, Gu Qingfeng pulled out a primordial cultivation pill. Normally, it was for inner energy practitioners, but he decided to take it anyway. As it dissolved, a pure medicinal energy filled him, and he started absorbing it using the Pure Bright technique. Demon exorcists nearby praised his diligence, impressed that he was practicing even in the resting hall and setting a good example for everyone. An hour into his practice, Gu Qingfeng felt his internal power spike and accidentally let out a loud fart, filling the resting room with a horrible stench. Despite that, he broke through to the 4th level of the energy-gathering realm, the Pinnacle. He was shocked at how effective the primordial cultivation pill was. A few more pills could have pushed him into the inner energy realm in minutes. Too bad the Demon Quelling Bureau was stingy and only gave him one. As a yellow-rank demon exorcist, the only way to get more pills was by completing tasks and earning merits. Basically, you had to work hard every day like an honest laborer to keep improving. Remembering it was his first day reporting as a yellow rank, Gu Qingfeng rushed back. To his surprise, his direct superior was none other than He Fenghua. No wonder He Fenghua had been the referee in the recent competition. He had replaced the late mysterious rank demon exorcist and was now picking subordinates. Gu Qingfeng felt a bit nervous, having refused He Fenghua twice before. Still, he reported dutifully. He Fenghua stayed silent, clearly trying to make things awkward, but a one-eyed woman stretched lazily and greeted him, breaking the tension. She smiled, warned him he was late on his first day, and said he'd lose a month's salary as a lesson. He Fenghua agreed without complaint. Gu Qingfeng couldn't believe it. Find a whole month's salary on his very first day, he muttered to himself, grumbling about working for free, while pointing out that the sundial outside showed he was basically on time. He Fenghua replied sharply that rules were rules, and hinted he might be lenient if Gu Qingfeng admitted his mistake. Gu Qingfeng laughed and jokingly accused He Fenghua of showing off his authority. The other demon exorcists were impressed by his boldness, though they wondered if he really understood how to respect a superior. He Fenghua calmly picked up his cup and asked if Gu Qingfeng realized the severity of his words. Unfazed, Gu Qingfeng shot back, calling out He Fenghua for manipulating the competition and mistreating subordinates. The room went silent, and He Fenghua crushed his cup in anger. He scowled and threatened to have Gu Qingfeng assigned to the demon quelling prison as a guard for life. For a moment, Gu Qingfeng froze, but then realized this might actually be a lucky break. He had been looking for an excuse to get transferred to the prison, and now it was basically being offered to him on a silver platter. Gu Qingfeng stepped forward, grabbed He Fenghua's hand and thanked him with mock tears, though inside he was secretly thrilled. He was thinking, yes! The second layer demons, here I come. He Fenghua looked confused, assuming Gu Qingfeng was scared or trying to act humble. The one-eyed woman jumped in, suggesting He Fenghua reconsider, since they were short-staffed after recent events. But Gu Qingfeng quickly insisted he really wanted to go to the demon-quelling prison right away. This stubbornness made the one-eyed woman furious, wondering if he had lost his mind. He Fenghua finally interrupted, deciding to let it slide for now, mostly because the Bureau couldn't afford a problem with staffing so soon. So, for Gu Qingfeng, the chance to get his preferred second-layer assignment slipped away. Instead, Steward Huang led him to select subordinates. Each yellow-rank demon exorcist could choose up to 5 people. The new recruits included 4 high-level inner energy realm masters, while Gu Qingfeng was only at the 3rd level of the energy gathering realm. Most were aware of his past feats, but doubted his real strength. They figured he might be strong physically, but he'd struggle against inner energy realm fighters. In their eyes, he was the weakest among the five. During the selection, everyone else quickly gathered followers, leaving Gu Qingfeng empty-handed. It looked like he was being ignored. Not one to give up, Gu Qingfeng decided to take matters into his own hands. He convinced others to join his team, arguing that even powerful leaders can't handle all demons alone, and that he'd act as a shield to boost their chances of survival. Most were skeptical, but a few, like the cautious Fatty Wang and the scholarly Xu Fan, agreed to follow him. After picking his subordinates, the Bureau assigned each yellow-rank demon exorcist an area to manage demon-related incidents. He Fenghua handled the assignments himself, and behind Gu Qingfeng, Fatty Wang quietly prayed he wouldn't get stuck with the dreaded Blackwater Village. Curious about Blackwater Village, Gu Qingfeng asked Fatty Wang what was so bad about it. Fatty Wang explained that the recently deceased mysterious rank demon exorcist Mr. Yang had died there. On a dark, windy night, Mr. Yang and 4 yellow-rank demon exorcists were patrolling the dry bone forest when some cursed bones suddenly turned into troublemakers and finished him off. A heaven-rank demon exorcist had sent reinforcements, but they returned empty-handed, concluding that the threat wasn't local and moved around. Anyone with sense could tell it was hiding, waiting for the right moment to act again. Fatty Wang, worried about being assigned there, asked Gu Qingfeng if he could talk to He Fenghua for leniency. Gu Qingfeng awkwardly smiled, claiming his relationship with He Fenghua was excellent and that he'd surely get special treatment. Fatty Wang felt relieved, but He Fenghua coldly assigned Blackwater Village to Gu Qingfeng anyway. Fatty Wang was stunned, realizing Gu Qingfeng's good relationship wasn't helping. Gu Qingfeng just nodded awkwardly, while Fatty Wang sank to his knees knowing they were in for a tough time. He suggested they patrol only the outskirts to stay safe, but Gu Qingfeng refused, saying a true demon exorcist couldn't just stand by, they had to protect the people. Xu Fan supported Gu Qingfeng completely, insisting that their duty was to save people and restore order. Fatty Wang was left speechless, wondering if Xu Fan had lost his mind. Gu Qingfeng reassured everyone, promising that with him around, ordinary threats were nothing to worry about. But they still had 3 days before heading to Blackwater Village, so Gu Qingfeng planned to use the time to practice the Burn Bright sword. He considered using ordinary flames, but that would be slow and awkward since he'd need to light them manually each time. Then, a bright idea struck him. Why not make it like a lighter? He planned to forge the sword from special flint material, fill the scabbard with flammable oil, and rig it so that drawing the sword would ignite the oil instantly. Thanks to his fire mastery, he could control any leftover flames, preventing accidents. Feeling clever, he headed to the Demon Quelling Bureau's blacksmith to get the weapon made. At first, the blacksmith, a fitness fanatic, refused the order. Gu Qingfeng sighed at the typical public servant attitude, but then decided to use his money and handed over the payment and design. The blacksmith's attitude changed immediately, and he eagerly started studying the design, ready to get to work. After a while, the blacksmith warned Gu Qingfeng that a sword made from flint would be super fragile and useless for actual fighting. Gu Qingfeng had expected this and told him to follow the design anyway, since the sword wasn't meant for combat. It was just for practicing the Burn Bright sword technique. The blacksmith got it and said it would take 5 days to finish. Gu Qingfeng, knowing he'd be heading to Blackwater Village in 3 days, didn't want to take any chances. He offered extra money to get it done faster. The blacksmith hesitated at first, but agreed after seeing the bonus. Motivated by the extra pay, he finished the fire sword in just 2 days. Gu Qingfeng named it Yama. Before heading out, Gu Qingfeng made sure he was fully prepared. He brought along the goose feather blade blessed by the Bureau, the regenerative Wood King sword he'd discovered, 7 talismans, and a bottle of energy nourishing pill. Feeling confident, he called Fatty Wang and Xu Fan to leave. Fatty Wang had gotten even heavier, apparently because he was wearing extra thick armor out of fear. Gu Qingfeng was impressed he could even move in all that. By dusk, they reached Blackwater Village in Dark Mountain County. At first glance, the village seemed peaceful, making Gu Qingfeng wonder if there were really any troublemakers around. Still, he decided to enter and check things out. As soon as they stepped in, the village head, an old man named Hu Liang, stopped them. After a brief chat, Hu Liang explained what had been happening. A month ago, a strange black wind had been sweeping through the village, taking children. At first, villagers thought it was wild animals, but when kids started disappearing even from their homes and witnesses claimed a blinding black wind was responsible, Hu Liang reported it to the Demon Quelling Bureau. That's when Mr. Yang's tragedy happened. After his departure, the disappearances stopped, which seemed to confirm that the wandering threat had moved on. Gu Qingfeng told Hu Liang to head back home while he explored the dry bone forest before dark. Fatty Wang, however, wanted to report back since nothing had happened for days. Gu Qingfeng refused, insisting they stay overnight, and jokingly threatened to expose Fatty Wang's cowardice if he tried to leave. Reluctantly, Fatty Wang agreed. Then their attention was caught by a candied hawthorn seller. Fatty Wang was especially excited and asked if Gu Qingfeng and Xu Fan wanted some. Xu Fan was about to answer, but Gu Qingfeng quickly said he'd like one. and Fatty Wang immediately rushed off to buy it, leaving Shu Fan out of the treat. No matter how much Fatty Wang called, the candied hawthorn vendor just vanished into an alley like he was invisible. Fatty Wang chased after him but suddenly screamed in terror. When Gu Qingfeng got there, Fatty Wang was pointing at a dead end, insisting the vendor had disappeared. Gu Qingfeng and Shu Fan carefully checked the area but found no traps or secret exits. Considering Fatty Wang's level, it was clear the vendor was at least a true energy realm practitioner or a hidden expert. If so, he could have handled the child disappearances himself, which made Gu Qingfeng suspect the vendor was one of the culprits. To get more clues, Gu Qingfeng looked at some children playing nearby, thinking they might have seen something. He approached a boy with a top knot and asked if he'd noticed anything unusual. The kid cheekily asked if anyone was more suspicious than him and whether there was money involved. Fatty Wang got mad and rolled up his sleeves, ready to scold the kid, but Shu Fan just stood there, leaving him embarrassed. Gu Qingfeng calmly handed the child 2 copper coins and asked about the hawthorn vendor. Shockingly, the child claimed he hadn't seen anyone, even after taking the money. Frustrated, Gu Qingfeng wondered why the kid would take coins without giving any info. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Fatty Wang panicked and grabbed Gu Qingfeng, wanting to leave, but just then, Hu Liang, the village head, appeared and invited them to dinner, saying he had already prepared a meal. Gu Qingfeng agreed immediately, but Fatty Wang, sensing something off, urged him to leave early. Gu Qingfeng brushed off his worries, but when he looked back, the children they had just seen were gone. Now he really suspected something weird. Maybe the vendor, the kids, and even Hu Liang weren't what they seemed. To test his hunch, Gu Qingfeng had Shu Fan and Fatty Wang turn their heads and look back on 3. Sure enough, Hu Liang had disappeared too. Fatty Wang clung to Shu Fan in terror. Gu Qingfeng wasn't scared, but annoyed. He still wanted a candied hawthorn, got tricked out of 2 coins by the kids, and now even the village head seemed to be playing tricks on him. Determined, Gu Qingfeng told Fatty Wang and Shu Fan to search every house in the village to find the missing people. But when they came back, both sides of the village were completely deserted. Fatty Wang, now really spooked, suggested they should retreat and call for backup. Gu Qingfeng ignored Fatty Wang's panicking and started thinking maybe they'd been under some kind of illusion since entering the village. Curious, he asked his system why he hadn't gotten any feedback about leveling up. The system explained there were 2 possibilities. Either the illusion was man-made, not from a demon, or it was a demon's harmless trick, like a sleight of hand, that didn't harm him. So the system didn't react. Gu Qingfeng remembered how the eye demon's attack in demon-quelling prison triggered the system, but harmless illusions didn't. That explained why nothing had happened this time. Feeling confident, he drew his goose feather blade and led Fatty Wang and Shu Fan to the dry bone forest. He called out for Hu Liang loudly, searching without fear, even laughing a little like he was just at home. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan were amazed. Gu Qingfeng was completely fearless, so much that he actually made them feel safe. They realized they shouldn't try to deceive him, while the hidden demon in the forest hesitated to act, unsure if Gu Qingfeng was even human. Eventually, they reached a graveyard. Gu Qingfeng, thinking like a gamer expecting a boss fight, called out, but nothing happened. Then Fatty Wang screamed, pointing at a tombstone and muttering nonsense. Gu Qingfeng saw it had Hu Liang's name. Fatty Wang realized the man who invited them to dinner was actually dead. Gu Qingfeng figured all the tombstones were for the villagers, and that they had encountered Hu Liang's spirit earlier. Annoyed, Gu Qingfeng kicked Hu Liang's tombstone to pieces and ordered Fatty Wang and Shu Fan to dig up the grave. They hesitated, worried about divine consequences, but eventually followed him. They uncovered the coffin, and Gu Qingfeng jumped in and kicked it open, revealing a withered corpse. To their shock, its eyes opened and it stood up like a zombie. Gu Qingfeng didn't care what it had become. He just kicked it away, thinking it deserved it for deceiving him. Shu Fan, however, noticed something odd. The corpse smelled strongly of decay even though Hu Liang had just died, and it wasn't a skilled martial practitioner. It was basically a low-level zombie, only about the 4th level of the energy-gathering realm, so not dangerous. Shu Fan realized that the trickster they'd encountered earlier was Hu Liang's soul, and the zombie was just the reanimated body with no intelligence. Gu Qingfeng frowned, realizing their search hadn't led them to the main culprit, and they might have been wasting their time. Suddenly, a weird purple mist started rising from Hu Liang's body, spreading all over the graveyard. Then countless withered hands shot up from the ground, and a horde of zombies appeared, swarming toward them. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan panicked and thought about running, but Gu Qingfeng was thrilled. He said there was no need to retreat. The real show was just starting. He stood his ground, letting the zombies come at him. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan were worried, but in the next moment, Gu Qingfeng activated his golden bell shield, pushing the zombies back. Still, he wasn't satisfied and decided to test the talismans the Demon Quelling Bureau had given him. The first talisman barely did anything, only subduing 1 zombie. Not impressed, he threw the brighter, scarcer fire talismans next. Flames engulfed several zombies, turning them into dark smoke. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan were amazed, but Gu Qingfeng felt it was underwhelming considering his fire mastery skills. Meanwhile, a dark figure hiding in a tree was watching, muttering about how strong Gu Qingfeng was. Seeing his abilities, the figure decided there was no need to lure in another expert. Using strands of purple mist, the figure attacked Gu Qingfeng. He dodged instinctively, but the mist hit the ground and formed a vortex, pulling in body parts around them. Soon, all the parts merged into a disgusting 10-meter-tall monster. It looked at home in the graveyard, kicking zombies around like toys. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan turned pale with fear, but Gu Qingfeng was excited, curious to see the monster's strength. He told them to stay back and threw another fire talisman. It pierced the monster, but its waste regenerated almost immediately. Shu Fan quickly guessed that such monsters usually have a core, probably in the head. Gu Qingfeng ignored the advice, thinking finding the core would be easy. He drew his sword, Yama, and unleashed the burn-bright sword. Flames engulfed the giant monster, reducing it to ashes. Shu Fan was stunned and asked if Gu Qingfeng was really just a 4th-level energy-gathering realm martial practitioner. Gu Qingfeng casually denied any hidden identity and led them deeper into the dry bone forest. They still hadn't found the trickster. Not long after, Shu Fan mysteriously vanished. Gu Qingfeng decided to test what was happening using Fatty Wang. Sure enough, when he turned back, Fatty Wang was being silently dragged into a water sphere. Gu Qingfeng immediately dove in, and after a strange spatial shift, they found themselves back at the same scene where they had first arrived in Blackwater Village. Just then, Shu Fan, who had vanished earlier, suddenly reappeared. Fatty Wang immediately got suspicious and stepped in front of Gu Qingfeng, warning that this might not be the real Shu Fan. Shu Fan, in turn, doubted Fatty Wang and wondered if he was the trickster. They started arguing back and forth, unable to figure out who was real. Gu Qingfeng came up with a simple test. Have each of them lightly cut him with a knife to see if the system would react. At first, both were shocked by the request, but they went along with it, knowing Gu Qingfeng's golden bell shield and iron cloth robe could easily handle a light touch. After checking the system panel, Gu Qingfeng saw no points were triggered, confirming they were human. Once assured, Shu Fan shared his analysis. He explained that they were probably in a dark, other-dimensional space created by powerful demons, a place independent of reality where the laws of nature could be twisted. Gu Qingfeng was confused, asking how beings weaker than grandmasters could bend nature like this. Shu Fan admitted he didn't fully understand either, but said that to escape a dark domain, they first needed to figure out its rules. Gu Qingfeng got excited, treating it like a challenging escape room game, and sprinted toward Blackwater Village. Fatty Wang started asking Shu Fan what dangers to watch for, but before Shu Fan could answer, Gu Qingfeng punched Hu Liang, who immediately shattered like glass. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan were stunned. Shu Fan muttered that this must be the mirror demon, thought to have been gone for 200 years. Meanwhile, Gu Qingfeng crouched to examine the pieces. Curious, he picked up a shard and looked into it, instantly getting sucked into the mirror and disappearing. Shu Fan panicked, realizing Gu Qingfeng had fallen into the mirror demon's trap. Inside the mirrored space, Gu Qingfeng found himself facing a perfect duplicate of himself. He noticed the duplicate looked exactly like him, even equally handsome, and commented on it aloud. The duplicate, hearing this, sarcastically asked if he had no shame. Shu Fan explained to Fatty Wang that the mirror demon had been one of the 7 strongest generals from 200 years ago, and that Gu Qingfeng now had to face his own duplicate. He warned it was basically impossible to win because the duplicate had no fear, no emotions, and never made mistakes. The only way out, the mirror demon had said long ago, was to defeat yourself. Gu Qingfeng was a bit startled when the duplicate spoke, but quickly reasoned that of course it would. After all, it was an independent copy of himself. His main worry was whether the system could be copied too, but the system confirmed it couldn't, which gave him confidence. Seeing this as a perfect chance to get stronger, and maybe even exploit a bug, he realized that since the duplicate's strength matched his, every clash would help him grow. Excited, he threw a punch and the duplicate met it head-on. Neither gained the upper hand, and neither got hurt thanks to their Vajra body. Gu Qingfeng was impressed that his duplicate had this skill too. He then pulled out the Wood King's sword and stabbed it into the ground. Vines shot up everywhere, wrapping around the duplicate and turning the area into a small forest. This was the sword's special move: 1,000 woods, 10,000 forests, myriad forms. Even at its downgraded level, it was powerful. Gu Qingfeng had never had a reason to use this technique at full strength until now, but before he could celebrate, the duplicate broke free and used the same technique. Vines from both sides twisted together until they exploded with a loud boom. Gu Qingfeng couldn't believe it. This duplicate could copy even a mysterious rank spirit weapon, truly worthy of being one of the 7 demon generals. Not missing a beat, Gu Qingfeng infused the Wood King's sword with his white bone wraithfire and unleashed the Burn-Bright sword. The duplicate countered with its own dark sword energy, completely neutralizing the attack. Gu Qingfeng realized the duplicate also had fire mastery. The duplicate mocked him, asking if he was desperate, but Gu Qingfeng just flopped on the ground, telling it to attack quickly. The duplicate froze, confused by his apparent surroundings. surrender. Gu Qingfeng decided it was better to wait and grow stronger than fight blindly. The duplicate got annoyed but confident and attacked using the Wood King's sword, binding Gu Qingfeng in black vines and pounding at him. Gu Qingfeng stayed unharmed and scolded the duplicate for not using the Burn Bright sword powered by Whitebone Wraithfire instead. Suddenly, a blood shadow entered the duplicate, changing its aura entirely. Gu Qingfeng realized the real master had arrived. He taunted it, claiming it must be the Mirror Demon, the third of the 7 demon generals. The duplicate corrected him. It was actually the second strongest. Gu Qingfeng understood then that there was internal conflict among the 7 demon generals. He asked what the Mirror Demon wanted. The Mirror Demon planted the Wood King's sword into the ground and bluntly said that since Gu Qingfeng was already as strong as a Grandmaster despite his age, he should submit and help revive Lord Blood Demon, or else. Suddenly, everything clicked for Gu Qingfeng. The Mirror Demon had lured him here and caused the trouble in Blackwater Village just to revive the Blood Demon. Gu Qingfeng asked why the Mirror Demon needed him if there was already a copy of him. The Mirror Demon explained that the copy couldn't leave the mirror space, and if Gu Qingfeng died, the copy would die too. So they needed him alive. Gu Qingfeng burst out laughing. The Mirror Demon had basically spilled all his plans without even being asked. Was he really so eager to let someone know he wanted to revive the Blood Demon? No wonder they say villains get into trouble because they talk too much. The Mirror Demon scoffed, saying there was no need to hide anything from someone already dead. Gu Qingfeng just shook his head, calling him an idiot, which instantly made the Mirror Demon angry. He immediately launched a Burn Bright sword attack at Gu Qingfeng, but that was exactly what Gu Qingfeng wanted. He had been baiting this attack to test whether it could break the limits of his Vajra body. For this, he had even turned off his fire mastery on purpose, letting the sword hit him. The impact was huge, and the system instantly notified him that the Mirror Demon had attacked, giving him a massive boost to defense. With that, his Vajra body evolved into the Vajra Indestructible Body, and Gu Qingfeng felt a thrilling surge of strength. Still teasing, he taunted the Mirror Demon, asking if that was all it had. Furious, the Mirror Demon kept firing dozens of Burn Bright swords at him, which only made Gu Qingfeng's defense grow even more. Eventually, the Mirror Demon's stamina started to drop, trembling as he asked what kind of constitution could shrug off even Grandmaster level attacks. Gu Qingfeng snapped back, pointing out that it was a copy of him and hadn't evolved inside the mirror. The Mirror Demon was shocked. Gu Qingfeng realized the key weakness. The copy was frozen in strength at the moment it entered the mirror space. No wonder the Mirror Demon had been defeated 200 years ago. Confident now, Gu Qingfeng slowly approached and warned him one last time to use any powerful moves or lose the chance. He even made a throat-slitting gesture, which scared the Mirror Demon into retreating. Gu Qingfeng now knew the truth. The Mirror Demon copy was strong, could copy physical skills and flames, and could use the Burn Bright sword at Grandmaster level, but it couldn't replicate the system. His fire mastery could only reduce the damage, not eliminate it. With his newly evolved Vajra Indestructible Body, he decided to test it. Flashing behind the Mirror Demon, he punched hard at its golden bell shield and shattered it with a crack. The Mirror Demon screamed in disbelief, "Impossible!" as Gu Qingfeng sent him flying. Not stopping there, Gu Qingfeng tapped his foot and chased him through the air, landing over a dozen precise attacks, leaving the copy completely defenseless. Finally, the Mirror Demon crashed into a crater, weeping and frustrated, wondering why the original was so much stronger than the copy. Gu Qingfeng stepped on the Mirror Demon's head and coldly warned him that if these were his last words, it was over. The Mirror Demon's confident facade wavered, suddenly nervous, claiming he was the Blood Demon Lord's favored subordinate, and that killing him would leave a mark that could bring the Blood Demon Lord's wrath. Gu Qingfeng couldn't help but laugh. He joked that a buy one, get one free deal sounded perfect, and of course, he'd go for it. The Mirror Demon was stunned. Things weren't going according to plan. He tried to scare Gu Qingfeng, saying the Blood Demon Lord's power was beyond a Grandmaster, and that taking him out would be easy. But instead of fear, Gu Qingfeng looked thrilled, excited at the idea. Seizing the moment, Gu Qingfeng grabbed the Mirror Demon by the neck, mocking him, and questioning whether he could even leave the mark. The demon's disbelief grew. He hadn't expected someone to be this fearless. Gu Qingfeng tightened his grip and scolded him for all the deception, from using the villagers' souls to tricking him multiple times. The Mirror Demon nervously tried to explain he just wanted to scare him, not start a fight. Then Gu Qingfeng reminded him, angrily, that he'd even tricked him out of 2 copper coins, and that was the last straw. The Mirror Demon smirked, claiming it wasn't his problem, but suddenly his body turned into black smoke and tried to invade Gu Qingfeng, hoping to take control and turn him into a mirror slave. But Gu Qingfeng wasn't just anyone. He was the protagonist who always came out on top. The system immediately notified him that the Mirror Demon was attempting to spawn a mirror image clone inside him. Inside Gu Qingfeng, the Mirror Demon's screams echoed as he began to dissolve. Unexpectedly, Gu Qingfeng mastered the mirror image clone technique himself, appearing before the Mirror Demon. The Mirror Demon, realizing he was losing, desperately called on the Blood God to save him. A drop of his essence shot out, intended to corrupt Gu Qingfeng's body and make it a vessel for the blood demon. The essence split into countless droplets, spreading around Gu Qingfeng, turning the mirror space a deep red and starting to erode at his flesh. The danger was real, but Gu Qingfeng was ready for the challenge. The system pinged, alerting Gu Qingfeng that he was being attacked by the blood god essence, and his bloodline concentration increased rapidly. The screams of the blood god echoed as it started disintegrating. Then, the system congratulated him for acquiring a new divine ability, Mirror Image Clone. This skill let him create a clone identical to himself in both appearance and strength, with its duration depending on his cultivation level. Right now, it would last just the time it takes to burn an incense stick. Gu Qingfeng was thrilled. This was the mirror demon's trick, but now he could use it outside the mirror space. Even though the duration was short, it would grow as his cultivation improved. Then, the system announced another milestone. His bloodline concentration had reached a critical point, and bloodline awakening was now available. Gu Qingfeng was curious but a bit puzzled, asking what it meant. At that moment, a fragment of the blood demon's remnant soul shot out from his body and tried to attack him. The system immediately notified him that his soul power had increased, and as the remnant soul disintegrated, Gu Qingfeng absorbed its energy. This granted him several new talents, including super sharp hearing, keen eyesight, the ability to remember everything he saw, a clear spiritual platform, inner vision, and enhanced spiritual senses. Basically, even the blood demon became experience points for him. From the fragments, Gu Qingfeng learned that years ago, the blood demon had been severely weakened by the Righteous Alliance. Its essence split into 36 drops, each needing blood to fully revive. Once all drops absorbed enough energy, they'd come together to restore the blood demon. Even though Gu Qingfeng now merged with one drop, it wouldn't stop the resurrection, it would just weaken the blood demon's power a bit. Curious, Gu Qingfeng checked his body for changes. The system said he could awaken his bloodline, but it wouldn't happen automatically. This was innate power, and he had to trigger it himself. He also didn't yet know what his ancestral bloodline was. The system advised that the current location wasn't suitable for awakening, and suggested waiting until he returned to the demon. Quelling Bureau. Gu Qingfeng didn't overthink the system's earlier advice and asked about all his new abilities. The system quickly listed them. Sharp ears and bright eyes enhanced his hearing and vision. Never forget what you see let him remember every book he'd read. Clear and bright spiritual platform kept his mind sharp and protected against illusions, while also helping him focus during cultivation. Inner vision let him see inside his own body, organs, meridians, and the elixir field, which was perfect for guiding energy flow correctly. And spiritual sense gave him an extra sense to detect danger, malice, or spying. On top of that, he got one of the blood demon's signature techniques, rebirth from a drop of blood. Basically, even if his body got totally destroyed, as long as a single drop of blood remained, he could come back. Gu Qingfeng laughed at the thought. It was like having an extra life. Now I can really go all out against any demon, he thought, feeling invincible. Just then, cracks appeared above him, and debris fell, hitting him on the head. The mirror demon's death had caused the mirror space to collapse. When it fully disintegrated, Gu Qingfeng found himself back in the dry bone forest, but Fatty Wang and Shu Fan were missing. Before he could call out, both of them tumbled out of the collapsing mirror space. Shu Fan looked shocked, while Fatty Wang suspected it was another trick. Gu Qingfeng reassured them that the mirror demon was finished, and its death allowed them to escape. But seeing Gu Qingfeng's disheveled appearance, they had their doubts. It was hard to believe someone had taken down one of the 7 demon generals. To prove himself, Gu Qingfeng had Shu Fan remove his headband, tied it around his head, and suggested they test him with a knife like before. This convinced Fatty Wang and Shu Fan it was rare for someone to willingly invite a test of authenticity. Suddenly, the mirror space above cracked violently, and the area started shaking. Shu Fan realized the dark domain was collapsing, and urged everyone to run before the spatial forces shredded them. They made a dash toward the village exit, the only way out. Before they could get far, a group of wandering souls blocked their path. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan wanted to dodge them, but Gu Qingfeng held them back, telling them to go ahead while he covered their retreat. In his mind, he was thrilled. This collapse meant he could feel the raw spatial forces firsthand, and at the same time impress his companions. 2 birds, 1 stone. I'm genius, he thought. Fatty Wang, not getting the hint, shrugged and said the souls weren't strong enough to catch them anyway. So a rear guard wasn't really necessary. Gu Qingfeng felt a bit embarrassed when he heard Fatty Wang's comment, so he quickly turned on him, scolding him for talking too much and telling him to just run ahead and not ruin his plan to cover their retreat. Fatty Wang opened his mouth to argue, but Shu Fan wisely clamped a hand over his mouth and nudged him out of the way, leaving Gu Qingfeng alone for a moment. Once free, Gu Qingfeng let out his frustration on the souls blocking the path, scattering them with a few strong swings. The dark domain above finally couldn't handle the strain and started collapsing. Cracks spread toward him, and the system chimed in, announcing that the spatial forces had attacked him and he had gained other dimensional space. Opening his eyes, Gu Qingfeng examined this new mini-world. It was like the dark domain he had just escaped, but stable and controllable. He could store items, house living beings, even farm inside it. It could cover the whole of Blackwater Village, and he was the master, able to keep demon slaves or anyone else inside, following the real-world rules, always ready to obey his commands. Excited, he started imagining all sorts of fun toys and a carefree life in this space, but the system reminded him to check on his companions waiting outside. Gu Qingfeng nodded, and a huge portal appeared in front of him. He left through it, while Fatty Wang and Xu Fan watched the closing exit, silent and unsure. Xu Fan assumed Gu Qingfeng was going after the souls that had tricked him, and Fatty Wang shook his head, thinking Gu Qingfeng could be so petty, just because he was tricked once. He went all out. What they didn't know was Gu Qingfeng had overheard their conversation. Annoyed, he drew his Wood King sword and held it to Fatty Wang's neck, making them freeze. Fatty Wang quickly changed his tone, pretending relief and saying he was just glad Gu Qingfeng was safe. Gu Qingfeng mockingly told them to get moving, mentioning he might reward them or punish them depending on his mood. Soon, they returned to the Demon Quelling Bureau and reported the defeat of the Mirror Demon. He Fenghua was shocked and inspected the exorcism token carefully, since the death aura it contained couldn't be faked. He Fenghua's forehead creased in concern as he checked the recording. In the token's space, demon deaths appeared as light strips, thicker for stronger demons. He saw many demons had been defeated, and one almost solidified shadow proved that the Mirror Demon had truly been finished. After verifying everything, He Fenghua paused for a moment, perhaps thinking of taking credit for the achievement himself, but waved them off and told them to go rest. He kept the exorcism token to report to higher-ups later. Gu Qingfeng thanked him but suspected some hidden motives, though he didn't press it. Once they left, He Fenghua couldn't hide his excitement, laughing at the wall of exorcism tokens and thinking about where to place Gu Qingfeng's command to take credit. Suddenly, Gu Qingfeng peeked in, asking what he was laughing about. He Fenghua turned, a little startled, and said Gu Qingfeng should stop eavesdropping, joking that he was just happy for him, and that Gu Qingfeng's achievement also made him look good as a superior. Gu Qingfeng pretended to be concerned that He Fenghua might try to take credit for his achievement, making He Fenghua feel a little guilty but still try to act tough. He Fenghua assured him that he wouldn't stoop to something so petty, and reminded him that the exorcism token was registered under Gu Qingfeng's name anyway. Satisfied, Gu Qingfeng left, but once alone, He Fenghua couldn't resist laughing. He had been planning to transfer the demon death aura from the token to his own command, and once that was done, all the credit would be his. A promotion to Earth-rank demon exorcist was just around the corner, but then Gu Qingfeng peeked back in, asking what He Fenghua was laughing at this time. Panicked, He Fenghua tried to keep calm, worried that Gu Qingfeng might have overheard his scheme. Gu Qingfeng casually mentioned he had forgotten to take his exorcism token. This sent He Fenghua into a frenzy. If Gu Qingfeng took the token, all his plans would be ruined, and he might not be able to meet the higher-ranked Master Li. Gu Qingfeng suggested he could accompany him when the time came, teasing He Fenghua. He Fenghua quickly tried to stop him, insisting he had to report to the bureau immediately and couldn't risk delays. Gu Qingfeng, rubbing his hand as he reached for the token, reminded He Fenghua that he had heard everything earlier, even about his upcoming promotion. He Fenghua tried to brush it off, saying Gu Qingfeng's low rank meant no one would listen, and advised him to just let him have the credit. But Gu Qingfeng wasn't done. He pulled out a loudspeaker and started shouting that He Fenghua was trying to steal his credit. Seeing that he couldn't stop Gu Qingfeng without exposing himself, He Fenghua had no choice but to hand over the exorcism token. Gu Qingfeng then demanded 100 taels of gold as hush money. He Fenghua reluctantly gave him a note, but got upset when Gu Qingfeng insisted on real gold, calling him a robber. Gu Qingfeng grinned and said that was exactly the point, teasing He Fenghua to choose between money and his career. In a fit of rage, He Fenghua tried to attack him with a dagger, but Gu Qingfeng's defenses easily stopped it. Calmly, he reminded He Fenghua about the 100 taels, and He Fenghua begrudgingly handed it over. Then, with a casual punch to the chest, Gu Qingfeng told him to enjoy his day and be careful with his words next time. He Fenghua, overwhelmed, fainted from frustration. Gu Qingfeng shook his head, thinking He Fenghua couldn't take a joke, but decided to spare him for the sake of the money. He collected all of He Fenghua's belongings, and then loudly called for help, claiming He Fenghua had fainted. The next day, the whole Demon Quelling Bureau was buzzing about the incident. Rumors spread that He Fenghua had tried to steal Gu Qingfeng's credit and got taught a lesson. Even members of the Dark Bureau showed up. Curious, Gu Qingfeng asked about them, and Fatty Wang quietly explained that the Bureau had informants everywhere, both official demon exorcists and secret agents, all part of the Dark Bureau. Gu Qingfeng quickly understood the Dark Bureau's role. They weren't out there slaying demons like the regular demon exorcists, but instead gathered intel, watched for spies, and made sure no one was swayed by demon demons. He compared them to a disciplinary inspection team. His plan to ruin He Fenghua's reputation had actually worked out even better than expected. Just then, an old man from the Dark Bureau approached, saying that Master Li, a heaven-rank demon exorcist, wanted to see him. Gu Qingfeng told Fatty Wang to call Xu Fan, then followed the old man to a dimly lit hall. Master Li sat at the head of the room, looking serious, and immediately asked Gu Qingfeng if he realized the severity of his actions. Gu Qingfeng was puzzled at first, but Master Li explained that it seemed impossible for a mere yellow-rank demon exorcist to have finished the Mirror Demon, one of the 7 demon generals. He wanted to understand what kind of external skills could be that powerful. Gu Qingfeng stayed calm, insisting that everything he said was true and that he really had used his external skills to defeat the Mirror Demon. Inside, he was already planning his next move. If things went south, he had his Vajra indestructible body and other abilities to escape, though it might be hard to bring Fatty Wang and Xu Fan along. Master Li asked them to recount the whole incident, but then signaled Fatty Wang to tell the story. Fatty Wang, though timid, spoke cleverly, making Gu Qingfeng sound like a bold, clever hero who outsmarted the 7 demon generals and protected his friends. Gu Qingfeng was surprised to see how heroically his subordinate viewed him. He had seriously underestimated Fatty Wang. Of course, not everyone was convinced. 2 Earth-rank demon exorcists questioned the story, pointing out that several grandmasters had died trying to face the Mirror Demon, so maybe Gu Qingfeng had conspired with it somehow. Master Li agreed that caution was needed and decided on a physical examination. He pressed his finger to Gu Qingfeng's forehead, infusing true energy to carefully sense his abilities. When he opened his eyes, he was genuinely shocked. Gu Qingfeng really had mastered numerous external skills, making him a true talent. After the check, Master Li explained to the others how this was possible. External skills focus on the physical body, the bright side, while the soul is the dark side. Since the Mirror Demon's domain was dark, it couldn't fully counter the bright energy of Gu Qingfeng's external skills. That's why he was able to finish the Mirror Demon when several grandmasters couldn't. Gu Qingfeng breathed a sigh of relief. Li Qianren's explanation about the conflict between bright and dark energy actually made sense. He even admitted to himself that it sounded so serious he almost believed it, but one of the Earth-rank demon exorcists wasn't convinced, and asked why the grandmasters with external skills had failed to finish the Mirror Demon. Li Qianren patiently explained that when you reach the grandmaster level, fierce energy protection makes body-based defenses like Golden Bell Shield or Iron Cloth Robe less effective against a clone. The Earth-rank exorcist finally understood and thanked him. Gu Qingfeng gave Li Qianren a mental thumbs up. This guy was really sharp with logic. Just as it seemed everyone was on the same page, Li Qianren threw a curveball. He suggested that maybe Gu Qingfeng hadn't actually finished the Mirror Demon. Gu Qingfeng froze, wondering if Li Qianren was overthinking or just messing with him. Li Qianren went on, pointing out that the Mirror Demon also had a skill called Mirror Image Invasion, kind of like spirit possession. It could take over someone's body, and only a grandmaster could resist it. That's why the Demon Quelling Bureau had sent 10 half-step grandmasters after the Mirror Demon. Now he asked Gu Qingfeng how he could prove he wasn't a mirror slave. The tension in the hall spiked, and the 2 Earth-rank exorcists beside Li Qianren gripped their weapons, eyeing Gu Qingfeng warily. Gu Qingfeng thought to himself that he needed a solid explanation, and escape wasn't an option. He decided to rely on his soul power as proof. Calmly, he told Li Qianren that just before the Mirror Demon was finished, it tried a strange attack on him, possessing his replica and flowing into his body. He explained that in self-defense, he had used his soul power to fend it off. The female Earth-rank exorcist wasn't convinced, ready to intervene, but Li Qianren stopped her. He said they'd test Gu Qingfeng's claim. Then Li Qianren unleashed a surge of soul power at Gu Qingfeng, but Gu Qingfeng stood firm, matching it with his own soul power on par with a grandmaster. The hall shook as their powers clashed, sending shockwaves that even blew Fatty Wang and Xu Fan off their feet. Li Qianren was completely shocked. He couldn't believe that Gu Qingfeng, just a 4th-level energy-gathering realm practitioner, had soul power matching a grandmaster. He even muttered to himself, wondering what kind of talent this guy was. After a moment, he calmed down and admitted that Gu Qingfeng's soul power was indeed impressive, pure, and free from any strange energy, so he must be telling the truth. The 2 Earth-rank demon exorcists were thrilled too. Since Gu Qingfeng wasn't lying, they could report his achievement properly to the court, making their Phoenix Tree County Demon Quelling Bureau look good. Plus, they'd discovered a rare talent with extraordinary soul power, definitely a big gain for them. Watching their sudden shift in attitude, Gu Qingfeng chuckled internally, thinking these guys flipped their faces faster than a book. Then Li Qianren generously announced that Gu Qingfeng would be promoted a rank, receive 1,000 taels of gold, and 1,000,000 merit points. He added that once the court heard about it, Gu Qingfeng would get even more rewards. Gu Qingfeng was overjoyed. 1,000,000 merit points were huge. They were the internal currency of the Bureau, and could be exchanged for rare items or resources. 1,000,000 points were like finishing 10 and 8 realm demons, so it was an incredible reward. His excitement was briefly interrupted when a female demon exorcist questioned if the reward was too much for someone at Gu Qingfeng's level. Li Qianren Qianren shut her down coldly, saying that if someone could finish a 7-demon generals level demon, they'd get even more than Gu Qingfeng. She quickly backed off, leaving with the others. Afterward, Li Qianren gave Gu Qingfeng a serious warning. From now on, his name would be known across the dynasty, but fame could bring trouble. People might envy or resent him, and his energy cultivation talent wasn't strong enough to reach Grandmaster level. However, his strong soul power made him perfect for paths like the Way of the Pill, the Way of the Talisman, and the Way of the Formation. Li Qianren then asked if he wanted to pursue one of these paths. Gu Qingfeng asked which path Li Qianren recommended. Without hesitation, Li Qianren suggested the Way of the Pill. He explained it was the most popular path, but also perfect for a special task, entering the Jade Dragon's secret realm to retrieve the Eternal Youth Pill for the Emperor. Completing it could give Gu Qingfeng status and wealth far beyond a Grandmaster, even without reaching that level himself. Gu Qingfeng was completely shocked when he learned about the Eternal Youth Pill. Just one pill could put someone on equal footing with the Emperor. The current Emperor was old, and over the last 10 years, he had issued 3 imperial edicts promising a title and even the position of side-by-side king to whoever could present the pill. Gu Qingfeng's jaw nearly dropped. The side-by-side king? That's basically someone on par with the Emperor himself. He knew it couldn't be simple, so he asked Li Qianren for the details. Li Qianren explained that the Eternal Youth Pill was created over 100 years ago by Chu Yulong, a legendary master of the Way of the Pill. In the world of alchemy, there's no absolute best pill like martial arts. Each alchemist has their specialty, and the Eternal Youth Pill was Chu Yulong's masterpiece, earning him the title of Pill King. The pill didn't make you immortal, but it could dramatically extend life, reverse aging, and even change fate. Sadly, Chu Yulong died young, leaving no one capable of inheriting his divine techniques. To preserve his work, he created the Jade Dragon's secret realm, full of his life's achievements, and possibly even the Eternal Youth Pill. The secret realm opens every 5 years, but only young alchemists below the true energy realm can enter, ensuring the right successors are chosen. The next opening was still a year away, and Li Qianren's task for Gu Qingfeng was to enter it and claim the inheritance. No one had succeeded in over 100 years, but Li Qianren believed Gu Qingfeng had a real shot. Since alchemy relies mostly on soul talent and other skills can be learned, it seemed like a perfect fit. After thinking it through, Gu Qingfeng decided to accept. If he succeeded, Li Qianren would be rewarded too, and Gu Qingfeng himself could gain unimaginable status and wealth. And if he failed, there was no penalty. At worst, it would be an adventure. With the system on his side, Gu Qingfeng was confident he could eventually reach immortality. Li Qianren then prepared to help him cultivate his fire attribute and learn alchemy, but Gu Qingfeng waved him off. He said his fire mastery was already maxed out. To prove it, he drew his wooden sword and summoned a magnificent fire dragon with his fire mastery. Li Qianren couldn't help but admire him, noting that Gu Qingfeng was talented in body, soul, and fire control, just not in energy cultivation yet. Gu Qingfeng felt a bit awkward when Li Qianren teased him and joked that he might ruin his cool image. Before leaving, he suddenly remembered something and asked Li Qianren to get him the locust tree sprite from the first level of the demon-quelling prison. Li Qianren didn't ask why and just agreed. After Gu Qingfeng left, a shadowy figure appeared, reporting to Li Qianren. They noted that Gu Qingfeng had sensed someone in the hall. His expression had changed even though he didn't notice them directly. The figure suspected that his body might be influenced by another soul, maybe a human grandmaster, since there was no demonic aura. Li Qianren, however, wasn't worried. He was actually more confident now, impressed by Gu Qingfeng's fire control talent and thinking it would help him succeed in the Eternal Youth Pill task. The shadow warned that attempting this task could make Li Qianren an enemy of the whole world and that he might surpass a grandmaster in the future. But Li Qianren dismissed him harshly, telling him to be quiet. The figure sighed and vanished. Meanwhile, back at his residence, Gu Qingfeng tossed and turned in bed. He'd sensed someone powerful earlier and suspected it might have been one of Li Qianren's secret guards. He couldn't figure out Li Qianren's true intentions. His kindness felt suspicious, but decided not to overthink it. After all, what mattered was the Jade Dragon secret realm a year from now. Tomorrow, let alone a year, was unpredictable. Just then, there was a knock at the door. A tall, muscular man entered carrying a chest, a reward from Li Qianren. Gu Qingfeng learned that even though the mysterious rank demon exorcist spot at the bureau was filled, he would hold a nominal assistant position to He Fenghua with the same salary. Smiling at the money, Gu Qingfeng told the man to take care of other things and stored all the gold in his other dimensional space. With money secured, he turned his attention to Little Corpse Charmer, who he hadn't seen in a while. Opening her cell door, she ran to him, hugging him tightly and calling him master. She even took off her shoes to show the injuries she got from practicing her posture training these past days, clearly wanting his attention and care. Gu Qingfeng, in his usual blunt style, grabbed Little Corpse Charmer's foot and lifted her up, telling her to stop fussing since she was a corpse and shouldn't feel pain. He wanted to see the results of her practice, so he called the eye demon to act like a projector, turning the prison cell into a stage. When the music started, the cell instantly transformed into a performance space. Feeling something was missing, missing, he asked her to change into another outfit and perform the choreography he had taught her. Watching her dance, perfectly in sync with the music, Gu Qingfeng smiled and said it felt nice to have a touch of home. But soon he remembered his main task for the day and headed to the Locust Tree Sprite's cell. The sprite was surprised but greeted him warmly, congratulating him on obtaining the Wood King sword. Gu Qingfeng returned the gesture, telling the sprite the celebration was actually for leaving the prison. The sprite sensed he might be freed and hid a spike behind his back, but Gu Qingfeng acted first. The sprite tried to argue that he had contributed by offering the Wood King's sword and hoped for mercy, but Gu Qingfeng had already seen through the trick. The sword started glowing green, drawing out the sprite's energy until it was completely drained, leaving the sprite lifeless. A system notification confirmed the Wood King's sword had been upgraded to a higher tier. Gu Qingfeng decided not to waste the sprite's body and planned to use its tree bark for making talismans, placing it safely in his other dimensional space. Next, he went to the merit hall to exchange merits for items. The attendant, seeing Gu Qingfeng's low cultivation level, assumed he could only use the low-rank catalog and pointed him toward it. But Gu Qingfeng casually placed a demon exorcism token with 1,000,000 merits and his mysterious rank appointment on the table. The attendant was stunned, having never seen someone at the 4th stage of energy gathering realm with such high rank and merits, including a feat like defeating 7 demon generals. After checking everything, the attendant reluctantly handed over the catalog. Gu Qingfeng, amazed by the treasures and elixirs, tried to grab one of each, but the attendant explained that many high-rank items were stored at the headquarters and cost far more merits than he had. Frustrated, Gu Qingfeng asked for items from the local Phoenix Tree County branch instead. The attendant then provided the correct catalog, giving him a proper list of what was available locally. Gu Qingfeng picked up the middle-rank elixirs catalog and found the prices reasonable. Without overthinking, he tossed the entire catalog on the table and asked for one of each item, confident that he could afford them. The butler hurriedly started helping him collect the items, silently wondering if Gu Qingfeng was out of his mind. After all, most people bought elixirs by the piece, not by the entire catalog. Gu Qingfeng didn't care what others thought and calmly signed off on the order. This time, he didn't just get elixirs, he also picked up some spirit weapons and techniques. First was the Cosmic Balance Ring, perfect for using as an entrance medium for his other dimensional space. Then he got the Swift Wind Sturdy Shoes, a lower-tier mysterious rank wind attribute item that gave him speed, lightness, and even brief flight, making up for his lack of natural swiftness. He also chose the Pure Bright Limitless skill, a high-level technique that converted a tiny fraction of true energy into limitless energy, perfect for someone of his talent. Gu Qingfeng felt the basic Pure Bright technique was too simple for him. Only this advanced skill matched his level. After leaving the merit hall with his new items, he saw Fatty Wang and Shu Fan waiting to invite him to a celebration banquet at the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, known for its music and entertainment. The pavilion was packed. On stage, a woman danced gracefully, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. Gu Qingfeng, impressed by the show, planned to let Little Corpse Charmer experience something similar later. Just then, a young servant approached with a tray of cards, explaining that the cards represented the pavilion's ladies in 3 tiers: head courtesans, courtesans, and flower girls. The top row was the best, the bottom the least expensive. Each card had a flower on the back to show if a lady was already taken. Gu Qingfeng was impressed with the system. He quickly flipped 2 head courtesan cards, picking Like a Flower and Like Jade, the rare sisters of the pavilion. Then he let Fatty Wang and Shu Fan choose for themselves, their faces lighting up with excitement. As the banquet kicked off, the atmosphere was lively with beautiful companions, dancers moving to the music, and plenty of toasts and laughter. Everyone was having a great time. Somewhere in a dark dungeon, a man in a black robe was talking with a stunning woman in red. He mentioned that the mirror demon was gone, and the blood god it carried was missing. The woman was shocked, wondering how that could happen since blood gods can usually sense each other. The man explained he couldn't detect it, and suspected someone used a special method to hide the blood god. He needed her to investigate. According to their sources, the one who finished the mirror demon was Gu Qingfeng, a demon exorcist from Phoenix Tree County Bureau, barely at the 4th level of energy gathering realm. The woman laughed, intrigued by Gu Qingfeng's low level. She noted that the mirror demon had left a mark on him and that he was currently at the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Using her split presence, she planned to handle it herself and maybe personally thank him for finishing the mirror demon. Meanwhile, back at the pavilion, Gu Qingfeng was about to get closer to the girl he had chosen when a commotion erupted outside. Red Carp, the pavilion's top courtesan, had appeared, instantly grabbing everyone's attention. Forgetting about the girl beside him, Gu Qingfeng rushed to the hall to see Red Carp, leaving the other girl annoyed. She reminded him of a promise he made, but he didn't stop. When Red Carp finally appeared, she looked like a celestial maiden descending from the heavens. She gracefully leapt from the 2nd floor on a red ribbon and danced perfectly with the music. The audience was mesmerized, even fighting over the falling petals as if they carried her essence. Gu Qingfeng reached for a petal but caught nothing, realizing it was an illusion. Fatty Wang and Shu Fan, however, were completely lost in it. Frustrated, Gu Qingfeng punched Fatty Wang to snap him out, telling him not to make a fool of himself. Fatty Wang protested, saying he was just trying to enjoy the performance. Seeing the other guests absorbed in the illusion, Gu Qingfeng decided to join in and experience it himself. Unfortunately, by the time he landed, Red Carp had finished her dance and gone to rest. A maid came with a message telling everyone to relax and promising another chance to see her. Red Carp had set a little challenge. Anyone who could answer her question would be invited to the backyard for wine and conversation. Excited, Gu Qingfeng raised his hand, thinking how much it reminded him of story plots where the hero impresses everyone in a brothel and wins the admiration of the top courtesan. The maid then revealed a scroll filled with beautiful, colorful flowers, setting the stage for the challenge. Gu Qingfeng thought the challenge would be easy, maybe about flowers, and felt pretty excited. He figured he could recite countless poems on the spot, but it turned out he was totally wrong. The challenge was about spotting illusions. The maid shook the scroll, and suddenly the painted flowers seemed to come alive, covering the whole stage. Red Carp had created the 100 flowers in full bloom scroll herself, and only 3 of the flowers were real. Everyone else was an illusion. The goal was simple: find 1 real flower each, and the first 3 people to succeed would get to meet Red Carp in the backyard. Gu Qingfeng almost teamed up with Fatty Wang and Shu Fan, but they had already started searching on their own. Many guests quickly picked flowers, only to find they were illusions. Watching this, Gu Qingfeng decided to use his Grandmaster-level soul power to scan the area. Within moments, he located a real flower, plucked it, and handed it to the maid. She immediately announced him as the first person to find a real flower. The crowd was shocked. They couldn't believe someone at the 4th level of energy gathering realm had beaten all the stronger participants. Some even suspected trickery by the pavilion. The maid, used to this kind of skepticism, ignored the murmurs and led Gu Qingfeng to the backyard. Fatty Wang wanted to follow, but Gu Qingfeng told him to stay behind with Shu Fan. The backyard was calm and elegant, a big change from the lively front courtyard. A maid guided Gu Qingfeng to room 1 to rest. Soon, the other winners arrived in rooms 2 and 3. Red Carp had actually set up 3 stages in total, and the room numbers determined the order of challenges. Anyone who passed all stages would be chosen as her special guest. As Gu Qingfeng entered his room, a competitor from room 2 suddenly pressed a sword sheath against his neck. The man assumed Gu Qingfeng only got lucky finding the flower first and tried to claim the room by force. But Gu Qingfeng stayed calm and dared him to attack. The man swung his sword, only to be blocked by Gu Qingfeng's golden bell shield. Realizing he couldn't harm him, the man tried to leave but was stopped by Gu Qingfeng, who reminded him what would have happened without the shield. The man scoffed, claiming the strong survive and the weak don't. Gu Qingfeng, annoyed at his arrogance, told him he was the weaker one now and threw a punch. The man barely dodged, tried to strike again, and had his sword broken by Gu Qingfeng with just 1 hit. Shocked, he switched to a palm strike, but Gu Qingfeng caught his hand, twisted it, and easily overpowered him. Only then did the man realize how serious things were and begged for mercy. Gu Qingfeng looked at the man begging for mercy and just smiled faintly. He told him that when he was trying to harm others, he acted so self-righteous, so now it was only fair he faced consequences, but Gu Qingfeng wouldn't outright finish him. Instead, he decided to neutralize the man's powers, destroying his elixir field and meridians so he'd remain weak for the rest of his life. The man immediately lost all his cultivation and fainted. A maid watching all this questioned why Gu Qingfeng was so harsh. He simply shrugged, saying it was fair retaliation since the man had attacked him first. The maid argued for a peaceful approach, but Gu Qingfeng knew reasoning with her was useless. When she continued insisting, he lightly reprimanded her, pointing out that just like the man, she was stubborn and had the same twisted way of thinking. To cure her, he used an illusion technique that made her experience repeated scenarios, teaching her to rethink her worldview. Only after she fully understood and changed did the illusion end. With that done, Gu Qingfeng finally went into his room. Soon, Red Carp herself appeared, walking gracefully and examining the maid's earlier illusion. She smiled, clearly impressed, and complimented Gu Qingfeng on his skill. He modestly returned the compliment, secretly noting how different a top courtesan was from ordinary performers. Red Carp explained that she genuinely admired him, not just being polite, and that his lesson for the maid was actually a big help. She thanked him for setting her maid straight, pointing out that those who overstep should face consequences. After this, Red Carp led Gu Qingfeng to her boudoir, poured some wine, and casually asked his name. Clearly curious about him, Gu Qingfeng thought calling each other by name was too formal, so he suggested Red Carp call him good brother. She did, in a soft, tingling voice that immediately made him flustered. He instinctively hugged her, but just as he was about to get closer, Red Carp pushed his hands away, laughing, and offered to dance for him as an apology for her maid's earlier behavior. Gu Qingfeng asked for a cooler, more stylish dance, and Red Carp giggled, immediately performing a fiery, impressive routine. Watching her, Gu Qingfeng couldn't resist and embraced her. She played along, teasing him by offering a cup of rare purple bright wine in a playful way, drinking it off her body. He panicked at the wine's strange color and asked if it was poisoned. but she explained it was a rare, expensive wine, harmless and infused with purple energy. Gu Qingfeng scratched his head, amazed at how valuable the wine was, and hesitated over how to drink it properly. Seeing him hesitate, Redcarp worried he might suspect foul play, but he reassured her, calling her his dear sister, and downed the wine in one gulp. He described its taste in a dramatic, almost poetic way, leaving Redcarp both impressed and a little stunned. She poured him another cup, but before he could drink it, a system notification popped up, alerting him to a poison attack. His poison resistance rose and he gained a new talent. Unbothered, Gu Qingfeng declared that if the wine was poisoned, he'd drink it himself. He continued gulping down cup after cup, each sip increasing his poison resistance. Redcarp, watching him act so carefree despite his past battles, started questioning whether he was foolish or if the system really worked as he thought. Gu Qingfeng wasn't satisfied with just the wine. Spotting a packet of poison, he poured it straight into his mouth. The system congratulated him again, giving him another advanced poison immunity. Still craving more, he demanded that Redcarp bring any remaining poison, teasing her. She tried to play innocent, acting like she had no idea what he meant, completely baffled by his boldness and insatiable appetite for testing his limits. Gu Qingfeng, looking unimpressed, told Redcarp to stop pretending and just give him more poison, joking that otherwise she might end up like the table. Realizing she'd been caught, Redcarp attacked him, but Gu Qingfeng stayed calm. He dodged her punch and retaliated, seemingly blowing up her head. Her body collapsed motionless until black mist started rising from her neck, and her head began regenerating. Before she could react, Gu Qingfeng kicked her again, mocking her for calling him good brother, without offering more poisoned wine. That's when it became clear. Redcarp wasn't really herself. She was the Shadow Demon, the second of the 7 demon generals. Black mist poured out, filling the room, but Gu Qingfeng recognized the feeling of spatial distortion and calmly prepared his weapon. The Shadow Demon tried to disappear into mist, but he was ready. He blocked her first strike with ease, though she reappeared behind him and landed a heavy hit on his back. The system notified him that he'd been attacked and that his shadow attribute increased, but Gu Qingfeng decided to focus on the fight first. Closing his eyes, he sensed her movements and swung his blade, cutting a few strands of her hair. Using that moment, he struck again, leaving a visible scar on her face. He teased her, questioning if she really deserved her rank, mocking her strength compared to Mirror Demon. Instead of getting angry, the Shadow Demon laughed and started tearing at her outer skin, revealing a dark, shadowy form underneath. She continued calling him good brother, making Gu Qingfeng feel disgusted and nauseated. Remembering their past awkward interactions, still repulsed, he drew the Wood King's sword and launched a powerful burn-bright sword attack, slicing her in half, but her lower body, shrouded in black mist, quickly healed. He realized she could reform almost instantly, thinking, elementalization? Undeterred, he tried another technique, Greenwood Dragon Trap, but it passed through her body without effect, as she rejoined seamlessly. The Shadow Demon mocked Gu Qingfeng, claiming nothing could harm a shadow. Gu Qingfeng tried a fiery attack, but it bounced off harmlessly. He realized her dark domain made her untouchable to normal attacks, which explained why Mirror Demon was no match for her. Even though she was in front of him, he felt danger behind. Shadow Demon's shadow had come to life, wielding a shadowy sword, and slashed at him. The system kept alerting him to the attacks, boosting his shadow attribute every time, but Gu Qingfeng barely flinched, joking that her scratches barely tickled him. Shocked, Shadow Demon acknowledged his strength and decided it was time for her final move. She vanished and suddenly swung a massive shadow blade at him. Gu Qingfeng blocked it effortlessly with just a hand, and the system notified him he'd unlocked a new ability, Shapeshift Shadow Swap, letting him move instantly between connected shadows. That explained how she had been appearing and disappearing around him. Seeing her complex dark domain, Gu Qingfeng pretended to be badly hurt, collapsing to the ground and praising her strength, hoping to trick her into underestimating him. Shadow Demon, thinking her energy was running low, was surprised by his act and vanished. Gu Qingfeng, not missing a beat, used his new skill to chase her all the way to the outskirts of Phoenix Tree County. Now weakened and just a shadow of her former self, Shadow Demon tried to catch her breath, but she sensed Gu Qingfeng's approach. She demanded to know who he was and how he could use the shadow swap. He casually replied that his identity didn't matter and scolded her for not playing along with his act. As he lunged, she disappeared again, only to see a rabbit run past. She relaxed, thinking it was harmless, but suddenly Gu Qingfeng's head popped out from behind, joking that the rabbit had run from something even more dangerous, him. Terrified, she screamed, realizing she was the one in danger. She tried to back off and suggested they call it quits, acknowledging that both of them could use the shapeshift shadow swap. Gu Qingfeng shook his head, refusing to just let her go. He explained that he wasn't interested in taking names or changing anything about himself, and since she was just a shadow that only appeared in darkness, sunlight would be his best weapon. Then it clicked. If he wanted to stop her shapeshift shadow swap, he needed to eliminate the shadows. Light was the key. He activated his fire mastery, summoning flames so bright they lit up the forest like daytime. Shadow Demon, completely dark and inky, had nowhere to hide, inside. Trapped by the fire, she tried to argue that their energy was low and continuing would lead nowhere. But Gu Qingfeng clarified that he wasn't trying to trap her to finish her. He just wanted her to give him a proper challenge. Shadow Demon was surprised. She wondered if he was after secret info or the rare poison, but he insisted he didn't care about any of that. All he wanted was for her to attack him properly. If she satisfied him, he would let her go. Gu Qingfeng also pointed out that her shapeshift shadow swap required soul power, and that her soul wasn't as strong as his. He teased her that while her illusions were flashy, they lacked substance, which made her soul her weak spot. When Shadow Demon resisted, Gu Qingfeng pulled her into an illusion. In the void, he transformed his soul power into countless swords, raining them down on her. She tried to dodge, but the sheer number of soul-formed swords pierced her inky form, dimming it bit by bit. From above, Gu Qingfeng challenged her, telling her to hit him or face defeat. Panicked, she protested that she had a clone and that her true self was stronger, but Gu Qingfeng stayed calm, insisting she either strike him or be finished, warning her not to talk too much. And that's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, hit that like button for more juicy updates, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for regular updates.